Chapter 1323. Soon after, two figures stepped into the air and floated into their line of sight. The fatty's face was filled with a harmless smile. He was bare-chested and strolled in the air at a leisurely pace. If there were people from Earth present, they would definitely think that he was a much younger Maitreya Buddha. Wan Ishue, on the other hand, followed beside the fatty. His expression was solemn, which made him look out of place with the fatty. There was no other way. Wan Ishue could not be as relaxed as the fatty. She knew that in the next moment, there would be a difficult battle. When the person called Senior Brother Hao saw the appearance of the fatty and Wan Ishue, he let out a surprised but mocking cry. He then said, "Isn't this Wan Ishue?" "Yes, it is. I remember that before entering the secret realm, you were still a woman. What a pity, what a pity. Don't tell me that you've benefited this fatty?" Wan Ishue didn't think that the other party would tease him so blatantly when they met, but it just so happened to hit the nail on the head. Wan Ishue's face immediately turned red, but he didn't know how to refute. "Ha! I was wondering who it was. So it's the two from the Taoist Academy. I heard that this fatty is the chief disciple? He even defeated Yun Tian." "I don't think so. Brother Hao, do you know Wan Ishue? I feel that she's more feminine now." "Oh? Indeed. This girl was not the type to give people a breathtaking feeling. However, she's very pleasing to the eye. The more you look at her, the more attractive she is. Now, although her primordial yin has been eaten by a pig, she has indeed become more attractive. Damned fatty, he's wasting such a beauty. Ha ha." The crowd roared with laughter. The cultivators who had gathered their strength also relaxed. It was only two people, so they did not put them in their eyes. Even if the fatty was the chief disciple of the Taoist Academy, he was not a threat to them. The 10 or so people present were all top experts from first-rate academies. Moreover, this was the Emperor's Star secret realm. The token had already become trash and they would be trapped here for many years. Who cared about their identity? Who cared about being reserved? Otherwise, the person who was addressed as Senior Brother Hao wouldn't have spoken so shamelessly and directly without any consideration at all. "Don't go too far," Wan Ishue finally said after a long time. "Go too far? I still want to ride you." Haha. The group of people immediately laughed and scrupulously, looking at Wan Ishue with eyes full of lust. Boom. A terrifying, cold-killing intent suddenly bloomed, instantly causing the surrounding temperature to drop to the freezing point. It swept towards the crowd, causing their laughter to abruptly stop. One by one, they looked at Fatty in shock. Unknowingly, the harmless smile on the fatty's face had disappeared and was replaced by a cold, killing intent. His eyes had turned blood red, as if he had no human emotions. "Trash. Are you done?" The fatty's gaze locked onto the person called Senior Gua as he asked coldly. Seeing the fatty like this, Wan Ishue also took a deep breath, and his fighting spirit began to soar wildly. "Who? Ha? Pig, are you sure you're talking to me?" His improvement is astonishing. The cultivator called Senior Brother Hao was first intimidated by Chen Hao's murderous aura, but after recovering from his shock, he laughed heartily to cover up his loss of self-control. At the same time, after feeling the soaring battle intent on Wan Ishue's body, he was slightly surprised. "But with just this, he is qualified to fight with me, Hao Shen?" "That's right, it's just the slaughter intent. Although your realm is SOSO, compared to Senior Brother Hao's fighting strength, you're not even fit to carry his shoes. Come, if you want to fight, we'll fulfill your wish." Boom, 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 boom. In an instant, 14 figures stepped out from the crowd, their auras erupting as they directly surrounded Chen Hao and Wan Ishue. "Brothers, take it easy. Don't kill this girl, let us have some fun." "Ha, what?" Before the banter and lascivious laughter ended, everyone's eyes widened in shock, unable to believe what they had just seen. The moment before they spoke, Wan Ishue's thousands of fine black hair fluttered without wind, wantonly flying. After Chen Hao's guidance, the azure silk blue wave technique, which had been integrated with the 7 emotions and 6 desires, was directly raised to the limit by Wan Ishue. It was also at this time that Chen Hao moved. The cold, emotionless, simple and direct sword light was inconceivably fast. Combined with the effects of Wan Yishui's azure silk blue wave technique, it had reached a flawless stage. Not a second too early, not a second too late, it had perfectly struck out in the instant when everyone was distracted by the azure silk blue wave technique. Furthermore, before everyone had yet to recover, it had retracted the sword. Puff, 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 puff. Arrows of blood spurted out from between everyone's eyebrows, and their eyes widened in shock, unable to believe that they had been hit. The onlookers who were prepared to watch a good show seemed to have their throats forcibly cut off, and their laughter abruptly stopped. Pung ping pung. Boom boom boom. Immediately after, the heads of the 14 people who spurted out arrows of blood exploded, and their bodies collapsed. One sword killed them all. The 14 people did not even have the chance to use the law of the divine ability, and were killed by the fatty's sword. Of the people present, other than Chen Hao himself, not to mention the others, even Wan Yishui was shocked. She simply did not think that there would be such a terrifying effect. It was not that her azure silk blue wave technique was terrifying, but the time she could interfere, for these experts, was absolutely only a matter of an instant. Moreover, once there was a strong attacking aura, there would definitely be a reaction. In her view, at most, it would give the fatty an opportunity to take the initiative. But Chen Hao actually killed them all in one move. And each and every one of them had a hole in between their eyebrows. Without a doubt, this meant that, in the instant of the sparks, the fatty did not release one sword, but 14. How fast was he? Everyone's gaze towards the fatty quietly changed. The original ridicule disappeared, and was replaced by seriousness. The geniuses of the great world of Xian are scum like you? The fatty's gaze swept across the people present, and said with disdain, "You, come here and die." Finally, Chen Hao raised his sword and pointed at the person called Senior Brother Hao. "Arrogant. Looks like you're an outsider? Do you think you can speak like that about the people of the great world of Xian? You're simply courting death. Brothers and sisters, we're about to change shifts, and there's not much time. Let's kill this arrogant person who dares to call us scum." Hao Dian felt a chill in his heart. Among all the divine abilities in the world, only speed could not be defeated. Although the fatty's aura was not strong, and the 14 people were obviously affected by the aura released by Wan Yishui, the fatty's sword was too fast, so fast that even he did not see clearly how the fatty attacked. He was not sure if he could withstand Chen Hao's sword. How could he take the risk? Chapter 1324. Hao Dian, we're not your people. In fact, we're just here to watch a show. Brother, if I remember correctly, you're called Li Yuan, right? I was just joking just now. I'm Zhang Xiao from Dark North Academy. Give me some face and let bygones be bygones. We'll allow you and your partner to obtain the right to step onto the Emperor's celestial stairway. As for your grudge with Hao Dian, it has nothing to do with us. How about it? Zhang Xiao said. Obviously, Chen Hao and Wan Yishui's strength made him make his choice without any hesitation. 14 people in one strike. Even as the valedictorian of Dark North Academy, he couldn't do that. However, even though he gave in, his tone was still very arrogant. Hao Dian's expression became very ugly. He didn't expect that the person who called him brother just now would draw a clear line between them at this moment. His idea of encouraging everyone to kill the fatty was completely ruined. We knew each other before? At this moment, the fatty narrowed his eyes and looked at Zhang Xiao, the leader of Dark North Academy. You didn't know each other before, but don't you know each other now? Zhang Xiao was stunned for a moment, then looked straight at Chen Hao and smiled. We didn't know each other before, so why should I give you face? Who do you think you are? The Emperor's celestial stairway is for the capable. What right do you have to allow the two of us to obtain it? The fatty said aggressively. Chen Hao wouldn't be merciful to this kind of scum who bullied the weak and feared the strong. Turning weapons of war into gifts of jade and silk must be built on the bottom line. How could those who cross the bottom line be written off just because of a little charity and a condescending concession? Chen Hao was sure that if he and Wan Yishui couldn't win, Wan Yishui would really become their plaything. This kind of person should be killed without mercy. The smile on Zhang Zhao's face gradually froze with the fatty's voice. It turned into a vicious expression, and a vicious aura suddenly appeared. Humph, you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Do you really think you can do whatever you want in front of me with that little strength of yours? I just saw that your strength was all right and didn't want to fight with you. Since you don't know what's good for you and want to die, then I'll send you to heaven today. I'll give you a chance to finish him off first. Before Chen Hao could finish his words, Zhang Zhao's figure suddenly disappeared. In an instant, no one present could sense a trace of Chen Hao's aura. But in the next moment, something that made everyone's scalp go numb happened. Hao Dian's eyes widened. He flipped his head up and looked at the tip of the sword that was sticking out from the back of his head. He wanted to say a word, but he couldn't. This was because a boundless feeling of fear surged out from the sword and destroyed his will in an unstoppable manner. His consciousness collapsed. It was only at this moment that he understood why the 14 of them didn't even show the slightest bit of resistance. Regret, endless regret. He had thought that the other party was a pighead, but who would have thought that the real pighead was him? He had actually taken the initiative to provoke such a terrifying existence. Not to mention him, even young Master Godwalk, Feng Wuxing, who had been protecting him from the start, would find it difficult to take down this fatty. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Everything was too late. Bang. Rumble. It's a very simple matter. When Hao Dian's head exploded like a watermelon and his physical body was also detonated and destroyed, Chen Hao's figure silently returned to his original spot as if he had never moved. He said indifferently. Zhang Zhao's face couldn't help but twitch. The shock brought by the fatty's killing of Hao Dian with a single sword was far more terrifying than killing the 14 people before. After all, Chen Hao had won with speed. The 14 people were limited by their own strength and couldn't react at all. But Hao Dian was different. Zhang Zhao was very clear about Hao Dian's strength. Even if he wasn't as strong as him, he wasn't much weaker. But he was still killed by the fatty without any room for resistance. That terrifying speed, that elusive appearance, and that concealment that couldn't even be sensed, was comparable to young Master Godwalk, Feng Wuxing. How could such a monstrous existence appear in Hua Hua Academy? Wan Yishui looked at Hao Dian, who had humiliated her many times without the ability to seek justice, and was actually killed by the fatty with a single sword strike. Her mood was very good. At the same time, she had a clearer understanding of the fatty's abnormal and powerful strength. This made her feel proud from the bottom of her heart, because this was her, Wan Yishui's man. Although she was only one of his many women, she felt a little regretful. Come at me together, so as not to waste my time. The fatty's cold voice rang out, causing everyone's hearts to thump. Brotherly, this has nothing to do with me. Just now, I didn't have any words or thoughts to humiliate you. A female disciple saw Zhang Zhao's expression and couldn't help but take half a step back. She made a prompt decision. Then you can scram. Chen Hao glanced at him and said with disdain, "You want to try walking away? Let me tell you, no matter where you go, it's a dead end. I, Zhang Zhao, hate this kind of coward the most." Sorry. After a slight hesitation, the woman directly left, causing Zhang Zhao's expression to become extremely ugly. But the fatty had already locked onto his aura, so he didn't dare to act rashly. Brotherly, me too. When the other woman saw this, she clenched her teeth and said, "Scram." Chen Hao was also disdainful, but he still let them go. All of this was within Chen Hao's expectations. A motley crew, vulnerable to a single blow. If they really swarmed up and fought with their lives, Chen Hao would be in trouble, not to mention Wan Yishui. But obviously, this temporary team was still divided into 4 factions, and there was no loyalty or unity to speak of. Brotherly, I don't have any ideas either. Is that so? Are you sure? The woman who spoke looked at Chen Hao's fierce eyes and didn't dare to say anything more. Obviously, they couldn't get away with deceit. All of their previous movements were in the fatty's mind. With their cultivation, it was easy for them to do this. Did you see that? He won't let anyone go. If you don't want to die, go. Zhang Xiao knew that he couldn't wait any longer, so he suddenly shouted. At this time, he also threw away his pride, and his previous superior attitude completely disappeared. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, a violent aura gushed out from all the people present. However, what made Chen Hao, who was prepared for a big battle, a little stunned was that not a single one of them attacked him and Wan Yishui. Instead, they scattered in all directions like birds and beasts, madly running away. Want to run? Although Chen Hao didn't expect this group of so-called geniuses to be so weak, he didn't waste any time. He swung his fat buttocks and merged with his sword to kill Zhang Xiao. Chapter 1325. Bam! Rumble! To Chen Hao's surprise, Zhang Xiao actually detonated his physical body just as the sword light was about to kill him. Under Zhang Xiao's deliberate control, the majestic and terrifying energy blasted toward Chen Hao. Even Chen Hao was sent flying by the recoil and spat out a mouthful of blood. This was the result of his quickest reaction. If he had been a little slower, the explosion of a freak Grand Luo's physical body would have been unbearable even for the experts of the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. Just you wait, Li Yuan. I, Zhang Xiao, will have my revenge. With only his primordial spirit left, Zhang Zhao's flying ability increased several times. With that, he disappeared from Chen Hao's senses. Fuck? That's ruthless. Chen Hao was shocked. It was the first time he had seen such a decisive person. But you think you can escape from Lord Fatty's hands like that? Fatty, wait for me. Buzz. Fatty's brow suddenly shook, and he broke through the air in an instant. However, Wan Yishui was dumbfounded. His primordial spirit had left his body. The Fatty's primordial spirit actually left his body to chase after Zhang Zhao's primordial spirit. This was too crazy and too ruthless. After all, this was the immortal Emperor tomb, where danger lurked everywhere. Was it worth it to leave his primordial spirit just to chase after a fleeing primordial spirit? What? Zhang Xiao sensed an aura that was faster than his primordial spirit and was rapidly approaching. He was so frightened that he almost fell from the sky. Lord Fatty isn't the kind of person who kills ruthlessly. Unfortunately, Lord Fatty hates threats the most. A stray dog. So be it if you want to escape, but how dare you speak so arrogantly? Buzz. Chen Hao opened his hand, and a vast and mysterious palm print blasted out. In an instant, it turned into a giant hand that covered the sky, flashing with endless mysterious runes as it clenched down. Li Yuan, if you kill me, there will be no place for you in this world. My Zhang family will tear you to pieces. Boom. Zhang Xiao was terrified and frantically resisted. Oh, is the Zhang family very powerful? The #1 family in Dark North Star. Li Yuan, if you let me go, then today's matter will be written off. Otherwise, you will regret it. The #1 clan of the North Underworld Star. How does it compare to the Galaxy King's Shao clan? Lord Fatty is someone who is going to kill Xiao Mantian. Do you think I will be afraid of you? Also, did you forget Lord Fatty's reminder? Lord Fatty hates threats the most. How dare you? A terrifying soul-crushing power surged from all directions, making Zhang Xiao realize that he had not only encountered a monstrous genius who pretended to be a pig to eat a tiger, but also a madman, a complete madman. With his consciousness destroyed, Zhang Xiao was dead. Phew! As his nascent divinity returned to his body, Chen Hao breathed out a long sigh of relief. He did not continue to chase after those scattered bandits. Not a small harvest. 2 leaders, 14 experts. Quite a lot of things. I should have robbed quite a few people, hee. Even if it was killed by a single sword strike, the powerful spiritual items of heaven and earth would not be completely annihilated when it was destroyed. Naturally, Chen Hao put them away. Fatty, aren't you taking too much of a risk? What if someone comes back to attack your physical body? Or the people inside come out, and I can't protect them? I couldn't ask for more. Unfortunately, they didn't come back. Fatty smiled and shook his head. Attack his physical body? Chen Hao was certain that after his nascent divinity left his physical body would be even more powerful than when he was in it. This was because the one watching over Chen Hao's physical body was the old god, who had become extremely powerful after his nirvana true self. Come, let's go in and take a look. Chen Hao did not say much and pulled Wan Yishui toward the entrance of the tower. After entering the door on the first floor, there was a towering black pagoda with golden words engraved on it. Dao laws surged around it. Even these simple engravings were filled with powerful Dao runes. Moreover, they should have been left behind by an immortal emperor when he was alive. Azure Cloud Staircase. The three large words at the top were obviously the name of this tower, which was similar to the emperor's celestial staircase. Azure Cloud Staircase meant to ascend to the clouds. Although it was not as domineering as the emperor's celestial staircase, one could imagine how powerful the Azure Cloud Staircase was just based on its name. The small words below introduced the Azure Cloud Staircase in detail. It was indeed formed based on the emperor's celestial staircase. There were a total of 3,000 steps, and the profundity of each step was based on the immortal emperor's understanding of the emperor's celestial staircase. Hence, the Azure Cloud Staircase, also known as the Lesser Celestial Staircase, could accommodate a maximum of 15 cultivators at the same time. If you can comprehend the first step within 10,000 years, you'll be qualified to go deeper. Otherwise, you'll lose the right to cultivate on the Azure Cloud Staircase. No wonder each team has 15 people. It looks like none of them have comprehended the first step until now. 10,000 years? The way I see it, to be able to comprehend the first level in 10,000 years, he should be a monster among geniuses. How long have we been in the secret realm? These people have only been here for a few hundred years at most. Of course, it's impossible for them to comprehend it. That's true. However, there's no protection in such a powerful place. It's obvious that the immortal emperor didn't intend to give us time to comprehend. 10,000 years for the first step, and 3,000 steps. If the time limit for each step is 10,000 years, then it'll be exactly 30 million years. Doesn't that mean 10,000 years in the great world of Xiandi? That's right. However, can we get out in 10,000 years? The tokens are useless now. If we want to get out, we can only break the barrier of the mystic realm by ourselves. However, that's impossible for us. Yes, it's impossible for now. However, we don't have to rush. The spirits of all living things will eventually find us, right? Let's go in. They still have people in there. Strength is everything. Either get lost or die. It's as simple as that. Chen Hao said arrogantly. The three teams were all trash. How could one of them be a good person? Moreover, after experiencing so much, Chen Hao was clear that the great world of Xiandi was a world where strength was everything. There was no right or wrong. If you were weak, you deserved to be bullied. Morality, benevolence, and righteousness became insignificant in the face of benefits. Of course, this was between strangers. True brothers and friends were definitely different. Boom. Chen Hao suddenly struck out with both his palms. One yin and one yang, two types of energy, blasted at the entrance of the first step. Who the fuck didn't keep their promises? There's still a day left. What's going on? Fuck, what's going on? I'm at a critical juncture. The moment the entrance of the inner door rumbled and opened, the extremely mysterious Dao mark pressure in the first step suddenly disappeared. At the same time, angry curses were heard. They jumped up and wanted to seek justice. After all, there was still a day left before the agreed time. Moreover, they should have taken the initiative to go out and not be interrupted. Chapter 1326. HM? Aren't they from Dehua Academy? Are you looking for death? But when the 15 of them saw that there were only two people, a fatty and a beauty, they were slightly surprised. They instantly recognized the two as Dehua Academy's Li Yuan and Wan Yishui. In reality, before entering the primitive secret realm, as long as one paid attention, they would be able to remember the names of the 10,000 people who entered. And Chen Hao and Wan Yishui, as disciples of the 5 great academies, were naturally more eye-catching. I'll give you 2 choices. Scram. 2 die. The fatty's smile did not change at all. Even his gaze did not waver as he said indifferently, What did you say? Pa. Who do you think you are? Sword and Saber Prince Ding Hao. Are you the Shao family's Shao Mantian couple or the divine travel prince Feng Wuxing? Pa. This damn fatty must have water in his head, trying to act cool in front of us. I'll count to 3. If you don't scram, that means you've chosen death. The fatty's voice was still indifferent. However, Wan Ishue's palms were sweating, and her nervous, tender body faintly trembled. She had never done such a thing before, but at this very moment, she was faintly excited in the depths of her heart. She didn't feel that the fatty had gone overboard in the slightest. Just like what the fatty had said, this was a world where the strong were respected. Furthermore, the person they were bullying was not a good person. Even at death's door, he was still so arrogant. What? 3. Idiot, die with me. The leader of the 15 people, the strongest cultivator, felt extremely ashamed and resentful. An unknown fatty actually dared to threaten him? If he did not kill him in one move, his reputation would be tarnished. What kind of joke is this? Even a random cat or dog wants to ride on my head and shit. Hence, he counted to 3 for the fatty and punched out at the same time. Ha! Everyone burst out laughing. They still did not have the slightest bit of awareness before death. How can a human be so stupid? Amidst the explosion, the fatty's indifferent voice clearly traveled into everyone's ears. Don't tell me you didn't think, how can I open the door? Killing trash like you is really dirtying Lord Fatty's hands. Open up your mind space and hand over everything, and I'll spare your lives. The raging energy and dust dissipated. Fatty and Wan Ishue were still standing side by side, as if they hadn't moved at all. However, their leader had already disappeared, leaving behind only the bloodstains on the ground. One by one, they retreated in horror, chills running down their spines. The powerful leader didn't even have the chance to scream before he died. Moreover, Fatty's words finally made them think. With the 3 teams outside, how could Fatty and his companion come in and open the door? It was clear that the 3 teams outside were unable to stop them at all. In other words, they were already doomed. I'll count to 3. What? It was still the same indifferent voice. Hiss. I'll give it to you, don't kill me. We will give it to you. Chi. Walla 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 walla. In an instant, all 14 of them opened up their mind spaces without exception, allowing Chen Hao's mind to merge into them and see everything clearly. At the same time, they forcefully endured the pain in their hearts and handed over all the treasures they had accumulated throughout their lives, such as spiritual items of heaven and earth, immortal fundamental crystals, and so on. No matter how many treasures there were, they had to be alive to enjoy them. Who dared to disobey? Good boys. You can scram now. Fatty's arrogant and cold expression finally revealed a harmless smile, and he waved his hand to chase them away. The 14 people were as if they had been released from a great burden. How would they dare to stay? In an instant, they disappeared completely. So many treasures. Wan Ishue looked at the mountain of treasures, immortal yuan crystals, and other items in the huge space on the first floor, and her eyes lit up a little. Any one of them would be richer than her savings. Take whatever you want, Fatty said generously. Fatty had always been generous to his own woman. What's yours is mine. Even you are mine, how can I not be generous? As he spoke, Fatty waved his hand and sent out 2 waves of energy, closing the inner door of the entrance. Phew, that was close. Who would have thought that Fatty Li Yuan from the Taihua school would have such terrifying strength? Luckily, he didn't want to kill them all. That's right, this Fatty is really a madman. He even dared to kill Zhang Xiao, and from his tone, he even dared to touch Shao Mantian from the Shao family? It should be. Before entering the Emperor Star's secret realm, did you forget that Shao Mantian and Feng Hanwei said that the 2 of them were burdens? With this Fatty's strength, how could he be happy? I feel that even if this Fatty isn't as strong as Shao Mantian and Feng Hanwei, he isn't any weaker than them. Furthermore, his speed and concealment skills are comparable to young Master Godspeed's Feng Wuxing. Zhang Xiao didn't even have the strength to fight back. He is indeed very strong. Let's wait and see. There will definitely be people who will spread the news today. As long as young Master Godspeed and Xiao Mantian receive the news, they will definitely come. There is a high possibility that other peak experts will also come. That's right. The Azure Cloud Staircase is a small staircase. It has 3,000 steps and 3,000 paths. It is very likely to be one of the strongest cultivation grounds in this secret realm. It will be of great help to those who are on the path to becoming immortal emperor. It's a pity that we can't go there anymore. In the first wave of people who escaped, for people from one of the academies gathered together and discussed with lingering fear. As for the 14 people who were robbed and chased off the Azure Cloud Staircase by the fatty, they were extremely depressed. They hated the fatty to the bone, but there was nothing they could do. Their leader, the top student of the Thunderclap Academy, Ingioli, had been killed by the fatty in one move. What could they do? Furthermore, after stepping off the Azure Cloud Staircase, the other 3 teams had disappeared. It was obvious that they had also been chased away by the fatty. This wasn't an existence that they could contend against. However, it was impossible for him to just swallow his anger. The Azure Cloud Staircase is definitely the most important cultivation ground in this secret realm. Reaching the top of the 3,000 steps is the time to shatter the void and return to the great world of Xiandi. The Hua Academy's Li Yuan and Wan Yishui monopolized it. They said that they would kill anyone who came, no matter who it was. Xiao Mantian and his wife, Feng Wuxing, Ding Hao and other peak experts. They looked down on everyone and were incomparably arrogant. In the future, if we see any stronger cultivators, we will spread this news. The news, which was hard to tell whether it was true or false, was spread out from the mouths of these cultivators. Even the originator of the Azure Cloud Staircase who made up the story didn't expect that his story about reaching the top of the 3,000 steps was the time to shatter the void and return to the Celestial Emperor realm was actually true. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. On the first level of the Azure Cloud Staircase, after Chen Hao closed the Tai Chi door, the entire space once again released an extremely mysterious Dao mark pressure. What surprised Chen Hao and Wan Yishui was that the Dao mark pressure wasn't strong. To be exact, it was only slightly stronger than the pressure outside. The only difference was that this Dao mark pressure contained a type of Dao law. It was a pure, simple but extremely mysterious Dao law. Wan Yishui felt that she didn't know where to start. It was just like when she comprehended the Dao mark left by Xiao Mantian. She had no clue at all. However, this was also within her expectations. To be able to comprehend the mystery of the first level in 10,000 years, one would be qualified to enter the second level. To be able to do this, one must be a genius among geniuses. Furthermore, she had just entered the secret realm. It would be strange if she could grasp the mystery within. Chapter 1327. Chen Hao had only sensed it for a while, but he was slightly surprised before he even started to comprehend it. The mystery contained in the pure Dao mark pressure made him feel a sense of déjà vu, as if he had seen it somewhere before. No, it's not that I've seen it before, it's that the general outline of the great Dao contains such mystery. Chen Hao instantly thought of the crux of the problem. The Azure Cloud Ladder was condensed with reference to the Emperor's Celestial Ladder. Although there were thousands of people and thousands of Daos, the essence of each great Dao was the same. In other words, the origin of the mysterious aura contained in the first level would definitely be reflected in the general outline of the great Dao. However, this realm is far beyond the realm I've comprehended. It's not easy to break through the first level, Chen Hao thought to himself, and then looked at Wan Yishui. Sister Shui, let's comprehend it together. Although there's no powerful pressure here to train ourselves, the mystery contained in the Dao mark pressure is the real aura of the great Dao. Later, I'll recite the general outline of the great Dao with Dao sound. Perhaps it'll help us comprehend it? Wan Yishui nodded in response. After all these years of being together and dual cultivation, Wan Yishui was no stranger to Chen Hao's general outline of the great Dao. The two of them sat cross-legged facing each other, connected their minds, and entered the state of thoughtless tranquility. Wan Yishui's azure silk blue ripple technique became the medium to connect their auras. Although their bodies did not merge, their soul consciousness easily entered the highest realm of unity. Immediately, Chen Hao's lips opened and closed. Dao sound filled the air, and golden lotus flowers floated out. His aura became elegant and sacred at this moment, as if an immortal had descended. Along with the passage of time, the Dao voice of the lotus blossoming tongue gradually underwent a subtle change. The lotus flowers transformed into numerous golden characters, and every single character was a character that Chen Hao had chanted with the Dao voice. However, at this moment, they seemed to have come alive and given birth to life. They swayed gently on their own and transformed into numerous extremely profound talisman markings. Boom, boom, boom. It was also at this time that Chen Hao and Wan Yishui's minds, which were connected as one, began to rumble. It was as if they were experiencing the primordial scene of the birth of the world and the beginning of the primordial chaos. The most ancient and simplest rune mysteries that only contain the most singular aura began to cleanse the depths of their souls. Chen Hao felt enlightened. The complex and mysterious aura of the Dao marks seemed to be dissected by these simple and pure symbols. In Chen Hao's mind, it became simple and clear. He seemed to have comprehended something, pondered over it, and gradually understood. Unfortunately, although Wan Yishui's mind was connected with Chen Hao's and had reached the highest level of unity, he was still restrained by his own realm and comprehension ability. He could only float up and down with Chen Hao's state of mind in a trance, seemingly comprehending but not comprehending, and could only leave a little impression and trace. However, even so, Wan Yishui felt as if a heavenly gate had been opened. His understanding of the origin of the Tao was growing at an unprecedented speed. It was much stronger than the first time he comprehended the origin of the Tao under the Tao sound of a true immortal king. The origin of the Tao. The wisp of consciousness in Chen Hao's mind was always in a clear-headed state. This kind of consciousness that was completely isolated, as if monitoring his own cultivation situation, to Chen Hao who was immersed in cultivation, would more or less have a little impact. However, Chen Hao had to do this. After all, this azure cloud staircase did not have any protective restrictions. Moreover, Chen Hao did not even need to think to know that the azure cloud staircase was a sacred place that was hard to come by even in the immortal emperor tomb. It was a sacred place that all cultivators would fight for. Moreover, there were many people who had escaped. These people, when they were qualified to enjoy it, were naturally afraid that others would know. They would never spread any news. Moreover, those who discovered this place would not be able to leave even if they wanted to. However, it was different now because they had lost the qualification to enter. Given the nature of these people, Chen Hao did not believe that they would silently accept his forceful occupation. It was inevitable that they would spread the news and even exaggerate the awesomeness of the azure cloud staircase. You robbed me, how can I let you off easily? This was the common characteristic of almost everyone. Because of this, Chen Hao had to keep a wisp of independent and clear-headed consciousness, just in case. As I said, the 3,000 steps of the Emperor Heaven staircase should only convey the aura of the origin of the Tao, which is the overall aura of the general outline of the great Tao. That's right. If each step really represents the mystery of a great Tao, then I'm afraid no one in the world can reach the top. However, even if it's just the aura of the origin of the Tao, no one has reached the top. The highest is the 2,999th step. Reaching the top meant passing the path of the immortal emperor. That was the moment to be promoted to the immortal emperor. However, now, the strongest Star River King in the great world of Xiandi was at most a half-step immortal emperor. There's one more thing. The origin of the Tao of the azure cloud staircase should be the immortal emperor's own origin of the Tao. In other words, the azure cloud staircase was condensed for his reincarnation of the forest of all things. For others, it can only serve as inspiration. If they sink too deep into it, it will become a restraint on the path of the immortal emperor. Phew, chi. Thinking of this, a sword light of wisdom suddenly rose in Chen Hao's mind. It directly cut off most of his mind that was immersed in enlightenment, and cut off the mental connection with Wan Yishui. Fatty, what's wrong? Suddenly cut off, Wan Yishui screamed and looked at Chen Hao in confusion. At the same time, her fighting spirit rose, and she was ready to fight. Her first thought was that the fatty, with his strong perception, might have discovered something. It doesn't belong to us. We don't need it. Chen Hao shook his head slightly. What do you mean? The mysterious aura here is the origin of the Tao of the immortal emperor condensed here. If we immerse ourselves in enlightenment, we will indeed make amazing progress in a short period of time. It can even be said that before the true immortal king realm, there are many benefits. However, the more benefits we get, the greater the restraint on us in the end. This is the Tao of the immortal emperor, not our Tao. We can't sink too deep. Fatty, isn't that already very good? True immortal king, my greatest wish is, if you follow me, your goal can't be limited to the true immortal king realm. I must step into the immortal emperor realm, jump out of life and death, see through fate, achieve eternal life, and roam the endless Milky Way. You're just a little true immortal king? Let's go. The fatty smiled and despised Wan Yishui's short-sightedness. He directly pulled Wan Yishui and stepped out of the azure cloud staircase. Chapter 1328. Plans could not keep up with the changes. Chen Hao had forcefully occupied the azure cloud staircase, but had given it up not long after entering. Not to mention others, even Chen Hao himself did not expect this. Wan Yishui felt that it was a pity, but Chen Hao did not care at all. However, it was also because of Chen Hao's carelessness that he missed the opportunity to break through the void and return to the great world of Xiandi. Otherwise, with the foundation of the primary principle of the Great Tao, he would definitely be able to break through layer by layer easily. Why would he need 10,000 years to break through each layer? There wouldn't be much suspense if they were unstoppable, of course. This was a blessing in disguise. Azure Cloud Staircase, Minor Staircase, condensed from the Emperor's Celestial Staircase? It can break through the void and return to the great world of Xiandi? In a few hundred years, the news of the Azure Cloud Staircase had spread among the cultivators who had stepped into the immortal Emperor tomb. What? Li Yuan from the University of Dahua killed Hao Dian and the others? He killed 14 people with one sword, and then killed Hao Dian with another sword? In the depths of the immortal Emperor tomb, young Master Xinxing, Feng Wuxing, had come out from a cultivation treasure ground and met a few cultivators with decent strength. He had received the news that Hao Dian and the others had been killed. Hao Dian was the valedictorian of the Cloud Sea Academy, and young Master Xinxing, Feng Wuxing, was the external aide that the Cloud Sea Academy had invited. Before entering the Emperor Star Secret Realm, the person who had stood out to challenge Xiao Mantian and his wife because of Hao Dian was Feng Wuxing. That fatty's aura seems to be ordinary, but he could actually kill Hao Dian with one sword. It seems that I have misjudged him. Feng Wuxing thought back to the scene when he had seen the fatty. Besides knowing this person, to be exact, the fatty did not attract his attention at all. If Hao Dian had not ridiculed Wan Yishui, and if he had not stood up for Xiao Mantian, he might not have even looked at the fatty. Minor Staircase, the profoundness it contains allows them to improve rapidly. It should be true. Only a true immortal emperor can condense such a sacred cultivation ground. I must go take a look. Young Master Xinxing, Feng Wuxing, not long after he received the news, he decisively moved, giving up on the huge temptation of continuing to approach the core area. It wasn't that he was tempted by the news. Instead, he saw the great potential of the 3,000 steps of the Lesser Sky Stairway. Only immortal emperors who had reached the top of the Emperor Heavenly Stairway could create such a place. Even if there were no magical treasures, just comprehending it would be of great help to one's future ascension of the Emperor Heavenly Stairway. Maybe it would be the key factor in reaching the top of the Emperor Heavenly Stairway. One had to know that this experience was something that even the strongest expert in the great world of Xiandi, Star River King, couldn't give. In the vast and boundless immortal Emperor tomb, it would take some time even if they started to approach the Azure Cloud Staircase as soon as they got the news. Even Feng Wuxing, who was known as the Godwalk Young Master, was no exception. However, there were fewer and fewer cultivators who were able to go deeper. In other words, There were no more cultivators who could quickly go deeper. They could only continue to cultivate and temper their bodies to increase their endurance and continue to advance. Because of Feng Wuxing's extreme speed, he went deeper than other experts. Therefore, he was the first to discover the sacred cultivation ground and occupy it. Xiao Mantian and his wife, the young master of saber and sword, Ding Hao, as well as the disciples of the new Sword King, Qin Yang and Miao Xian, who were known to the outside world but only a few people had met in the Emperor's Star secret realm. When they arrived at Feng Wuxing's location and knew that it was occupied by experts, they didn't fight for it for the time being. Everyone knew that there were even more powerful sacred cultivation grounds in the deeper regions. Because of this, Xiao Mantian, Ding Hao, Miao Xian and Qin Yang, as well as a small number of hidden experts, went deeper than Feng Wuxing. Therefore, these experts were late for over 10,000 years before they heard the news from the mouths of other cultivators. It had to be said that the immortal emperor tomb was really too big. It was so big that it took over 10,000 years for news to spread, especially when it was deliberately spread by people. As for Feng Wuxing, who had returned early, he felt great. Although there were new cultivators occupying the Azure Cloud stairs by the time he arrived, he naturally took it by force the moment he appeared. No one dared to say a word against him, and no one dared to compete for it for 10,000 years. In fact, when he had stepped on the Azure Cloud stairs for 1,000 years, he didn't even know if there were people after him, because he had already entered the second layer. 10,000 years to pass, but young Master Godtravel only used 1,000 years. Such a terrifying comprehension ability, even Chen Hao would be shocked if he knew. However, Feng Wuxing didn't relax in the slightest. Moreover, he didn't stop for even a moment. He madly and wholeheartedly comprehended because he believed that Fatty Li Yuan and Wan Yishui had definitely entered the second layer before him. No matter what, he didn't believe that the two of them would leave such a sacred cultivation ground. Unlike Chen Hao, Feng Wuxing definitely wouldn't discover that the Azure Cloud stairs contain the origin of Dao, and the origin of Dao of a former immortal emperor. Chen Hao was able to discover it because he possessed the Grand Dao outline, and it was the complete Grand Dao outline. The wind was formless, and it was an extremely powerful Dao law and profundity. As long as one comprehended it, one's state of mind, will, and comprehension of the heavenly Dao laws would improve at a tremendous speed. This feeling was absolutely indescribable. Moreover, Feng Wuxing believed that when he reached the top of the 3,000th layer, there would definitely be amazing inheritances, opportunities, or dangers brought by the spirits of all living beings. But no matter what, they were all things that he desperately wanted. What was there to fear about the spirits of all living beings? 10,000 years later, when the Xiao couple received the news, they only pondered for a moment before choosing the Azure Cloud stairs, just like Feng Wuxing. Because of Fatty Li Yuan and Wan Yishui, and because they also saw the true value of the Azure Cloud stairs. Not to mention anything else, if they could reach the top, they only needed to tell the Xiao clan's ancestor, the Star River King, about the mysteries they comprehended. Reaching the top, even the Star River King couldn't condense the 3,000th layer. How high was its value? But after receiving the news, Qin Yang and Miao Xian hesitated for a moment, but didn't change their path. One was a natural-born sword emperor, the other was a natural-born sword emperor. Once they decided on something, it wouldn't be easy to change it. Moreover, they were already invincible grand heavenly immortals, and had absolute confidence in themselves. After entering the core of the immortal emperor tomb, finding the immortal emperor's coffin, and obtaining the immortal emperor's remains and relics, it wouldn't matter if they returned to take a look. 10,000 years for one layer, they had absolute confidence in catching up. It was the best of both worlds and not choosing one. Chapter 1329. Under the space-time laws of the Emperor's Star secret realm, Chen Hao and Wan Yishui walked and stopped for 10,000 years, constantly going deeper and deeper, searching for their own opportunities and luck. The number of cultivators they met became fewer and fewer, and in the end, it was almost impossible to meet any more. The increasingly terrifying pressure had already stopped the vast majority of cultivators from advancing. If it weren't for Chen Hao's strong endurance and the Azure Strand's blue ripple art, this supreme dual cultivation technique, not to mention Wan Yishui, even Chen Hao's own cultivation speed would be greatly reduced. After all, the highest realm of the fusion of spirit and flesh and the astonishing effects of the azure strand's blue ripple art would greatly increase Chen Hao's cultivation speed. In a dilapidated palace that was on the verge of collapse, the naked Chen Hao let out a soft sigh and opened his eyes. What entered his eyes was the naked and exquisite Wan Yishui. At this moment, they were entangled together in a strange position, still in negative contact. 1,000 years. Each time is longer than the last. Chen Hao's lips curled into a smile as he muttered. His gaze carried a faint trace of gentleness and affection as it swept over the unconscious Wan Yishui. The most gentle and gentle water, a woman who was truly like water. Every time they dual cultivated, it would bring Chen Hao a new experience and feeling. Not only did it affect his soul and body, but more importantly, it affected his cultivation. This was a feeling that Chen Hao had never experienced before. To be more precise, Chen Hao had never experienced such a feeling during his cultivation. All along, the cultivation of cultivators was undoubtedly painful and lonely. It was accumulated through blood, sweat, and time. However, to cultivators it was worth it, because all the pain would disappear when they broke through the barrier, and their cultivation level would rise. When the comfortable and powerful feeling came, no matter how much pain it would be worth it. But now, Chen Hao did not feel any pain. The process of cultivation caused Chen Hao to be intoxicated and happy. He wished he could immerse himself in cultivation at all times. This was definitely not because of the master between the soul and the body brought about by dual cultivation. Instead, it was because of the enlightenment and tempering process at the beginning of the Great Cycle, and the comfort brought about by true cultivation. A different experience. But I seem to like the feeling of cultivation more. Fatty muttered to himself. After 1,000 years of dual cultivation, the two of them once again broke through the limits of the pressure they could withstand and had a new understanding of it. However, at the end of the dual cultivation, Chen Hao, who had never had sex with Wan Yishui purely for the purpose of cultivation, decided to experience it on the spur of the moment. Wan Yishui, who had only been a woman once, was continuously engaged by Chen Hao for several hours before he stopped. At this moment, she directly fell into a mortal's deep sleep. However, Chen Hao was still as lively as ever. "Damn Fatty, what do you mean?" Suddenly, Wan Yishui, who seemed to be in a deep sleep and indeed did not have any fluctuations in her mind, suddenly opened her eyes. She stared at Chen Hao and asked, "Aren't you asleep?" Chen Hao, who was in his original form, said in astonishment. He was slightly surprised. "If you say bad things about me, I'll wake up." Wan Yishui revealed a trace of pride. Another breakthrough? Chen Hao was slightly expectant. "Yes, the Tao is natural, the realm of kindness like water. Ordinary cultivators, I'm afraid that when I use the azure silk jade ripple technique and fall into an illusion, they would not even know that they have fallen into it." "Don't interrupt. What did you mean just now?" "I didn't do well enough?" Cough cough. "It's already very, very good. Brother just likes the feeling of being refreshed and improving, that's all." "Fish and bear paws," Chen Hao said. However, he was thinking about a question in his heart. Why did he have such a feeling? After all, the most primitive communication was the true catharsis of desire. It should be what a hot-blooded man like him liked the most. No matter how refreshing dual cultivation was, with some benefits added in, his heart should be second. However, he actually had a feeling that he liked cultivating more. What was this situation? Could it be that some kind of function was deteriorating? Fortunately, the figures of Chen Hao, Chen Shui, Helian Wuzi and other women appeared in his mind. When he deliberately fantasized, he immediately had the urge to be a man. Only then did Chen Hao heave a sigh of relief. In the end, he could only conclude that Sister Shui, this natural dual cultivation partner, was really too valiant. She had surpassed the most primitive desire in Chen Hao's heart. Compared to cultivating, it's only been 2 hours. What can be delayed? Do you not like me? You can't say that. If I don't like you, would I roll in the sheets with you? What kind of joke is this? I'm not a casual person. Who would believe you? There are so many women already. Looks like I spoil you too much. Watch how I teach you a lesson. Chen Hao suddenly turned around and got on the horse again. No, damn fatty, I just came. Be gentler. This is my punishment for you speaking nonsense. Shameless. Suddenly, a cold and ethereal voice that seemed to come from beyond the 9 heavens floated directly into Chen Hao and Wan Yishui's ears. Chen Hao, who was about to start a new round of charging, quivered and almost jumped up. Not to mention the thin-skinned Wan Yishui. Fuck. Who is it? Chen Hao shuddered and instantly returned to the appearance of a fatty. He got up from Wan Yishui's body, and his eyes shone with an incomparably bright golden light as he looked up. At this moment, the dilapidated but still sturdy palace was useless under Chen Hao's special ability. A figure stood in the void, but with his back facing the palace was reflected in Chen Hao's eyes, causing Chen Hao to frown. Expert. Beauty. Super expert. At the same time, she was also a super beauty. Just standing in the void, it was as if she had merged with heaven and earth. If Chen Hao's special ability had not seen through the walls of the palace and seen the other party, even Chen Hao would not have been able to sense the other party's aura. She was heaven and earth were her. Chen Hao, who had experienced this realm before, was naturally very familiar with it. However, Chen Hao had reached it when he was in a lower realm, and could not be compared to the other party. In the first 1,500 years, Chen Hao and Wan Yishui had met this woman whose identity was unknown, but there had been no conflict. The other party had no intention of bullying them. In other words, the other party did not put the two of them in her eyes at all and completely ignored them. At that time, Chen Hao also clearly felt that this woman was not someone he could compete with. The sword intent that was inadvertently released could only be described as terrifying. Chapter 1330. This woman was the female disciple of the new generation sword Chen Hao, Miao Xian. However, Chen Hao didn't know her identity. It's her? After Chen Hao discovered that it was the beautiful expert he had seen before, he cursed in his heart. Even though he knew that the other party was extremely powerful and likely beyond his imagination, it still made Chen Hao have the impulse to beat her up. There was no other way. If it was anyone else doing this, they would have the impulse to kill if they were suddenly disturbed. It was very easy to leave a psychological shadow, especially for some brothers with poor psychological quality. If they didn't handle it well, they would become the legendary Brother Withered. Who wouldn't be angry? The only thing worth rejoicing about was that the other party had clearly sensed what Chen Hao and Wan Yishui were doing, but didn't break in. Otherwise, it would be really bad. Chen Hao's appearance was exposed. With the other party's knowledge, she would naturally know that Chen Hao had cultivated the Great Change technique to the ultimate level. This was one of the reasons. Secondly, Chen Hao and Wan Yishui were naked, doing primitive activities for the sake of human reproduction. How could they be seen by outsiders? What a scandal! Not to mention Wan Yishui, even Chen Hao felt that he had no place to put his face. Boom! Chen Hao blasted open the seal he had set up with a punch and stepped out of the dilapidated palace. However, before Chen Hao could speak, the beautiful expert Miao Xian, who had her back facing Chen Hao, didn't even look back. She took the initiative to speak with her back facing Chen Hao. I'll give you 3 minutes to leave here. Her voice was very light and faint, but it revealed an unquestionable and irresistible will. It gave people the feeling that she was a high and mighty emperor, and her words were like gold and jade. No one could go against her. Boom! How could the god of slaughter Chen Hao, who had been interrupted and was a little angry, endure such a blatant contempt? Miao Xian's words directly ignited Chen Hao. In that instant, a terrifying fighting intent soared to the heavens. Chen Hao's essence, true essence, soul force, and will of slaughter directly bloomed without restraint. Chen Hao didn't dare to hold back in the slightest when facing a mysterious woman who could bring him enormous pressure with just her aura alone. Rumble. Ever since he stepped into the Emperor Star's secret realm, other than the few times he was hunted down by Xiao Mantian, this was the first time in 10,000 years that Qin Hao had used all his strength. He had only gathered his aura, and he had not even touched Miao Xian's aura yet, but he had caused a qi explosion. Miao Xian, who had her back facing Qin Hao and did not seem to care about Qin Hao at all, was slightly surprised. Immediately, an excited glint flashed across her eyes. That's right. Miao Xian thought to herself. Battle intent gushed out from her body. At the same time, she slowly turned around. In fact, Miao Xian, who had her back facing Qin Hao from the beginning, was not completely looking down on him as Qin Hao had thought. On the contrary, there was a reason why Miao Xian had appeared here and deliberately disturbed Qin Hao and Wan Yishui. It was true that she had accidentally bumped into them. She, who had been immersed in the state of I am heaven and earth as one, could have left quietly. However, she had deliberately startled the two of them. She was very curious as to what kind of person could actually go deeper than her. When she sensed Qin Hao's aura after coming out, she was slightly disappointed. Perhaps it was just his talent in withstanding pressure that was slightly stronger. Furthermore, he had relied on dual cultivation to walk ahead of her. However, before she was sure, she still made a provocative sound. She really wanted to fight. She was as lonely as snow. Even her senior brother could not satisfy her desire for battle. How could she give up so easily when she finally saw someone who had gone deeper than her? Now, just from the aura that Qin Hao had released, Miao Xian knew that she had done the right thing. A very strong aura. An aura that could arouse her desire to fight and make her excited. Moreover, Miao Xian was sure that this person's ability to hide his aura could hide from her perception. This also meant that this person might be even stronger. You want to fight? Miao Xian turned around and stood in the air. The corners of her skirt fluttered in the wind, and there seemed to be sword light flickering between her brows. It was swallowing and swallowing, and it was filled with endless mysteries. Her beautiful and otherworldly face contained an aura that made people unable to help but worship her like an empress. She looked indifferently at Qin Hao. This could be considered as having truly seen Qin Hao with her own eyes. She did not seem to have any reaction to Qin Hao's appearance. After a slight pause, she glanced at Wan Yishui, who had just arrived beside Qin Hao, and said, "Who do you think you are? Or is this your home?" Qin Hao said with a sharp gaze, "I don't think I am, and this is not my home. I need a training ground. It's that simple. Also, don't talk nonsense with me. You have 3 minutes. Leave or stay here forever." Miao Xian's voice and expression did not have the slightest emotional fluctuation, as if she was doing something trivial. If her fighting spirit did not soar with Qin Hao's, perhaps Qin Hao would think that she had the strength to kill him in one move. Otherwise, she would not be so calm. But even so, it still caused Qin Hao to feel an unprecedented pressure. Invincible general trend? Qin Hao's mind moved, and he thought of a possibility. Yes. This is definitely an invincible general trend formed by the belief of being invincible and having never tasted defeat. Master, it's not just an invincible general trend. Just as Qin Hao was thinking, Old God's voice appeared in Qin Hao's mind. What else? The body of a sword emperor in the sky, the emperor of swords. This is an innate emperor's aura that makes people submit. Old God reminded. The body of a sword emperor? There's such a body? Qin Hao was surprised. This was the first time he heard of such a body. Yes, there are all kinds of strange things in this world. There are sword emperors and sword emperors. They are born as one with the sword, and all swords bow down to them. Their body and mind are in harmony with the sword. Such a person's talent in swordsmanship is simply unimaginable to ordinary cultivators. The 9 levels of swordsmanship are easy. The birth of sword intent, sword soul, and so on is a matter of course. If the immortal Tao did not collapse, cough cough, such a person can become a sword emperor, which is the immortal emperor realm. I'm afraid there will be no barrier. Master, you have to be careful. This woman is definitely a supreme swordsmanship master, and she is in the category of invincible Daluo Jingxian. Although you are already at the peak of late stage, you still have not stepped into the peak stage. Old God was naturally confident in Chen Hao, even if the other party had the body of a sword emperor. However, it was not like in the ancient Chaos Great Thousand World and the Chaotic Great Thousand World. At that time, Chen Hao, who was only Daoyuo Jingxian, could kill Hongming Supreme and even cutting Dao perfected immortal experts. However, it was different in the great world of Xiandi. Chapter 1331. The great world of Xiandi was a holy land where countless top geniuses gathered. Even an ordinary disciple from a third-rate academy could be considered a genius in ancient chaos. A disciple from a first-rate academy could definitely be called a genius among geniuses. Therefore, in the great world of Xiandi, especially when Chen Hao was facing Xiaoman Tian and his wife, it was almost impossible for him to challenge someone of a higher realm. And for a heaven-defying existence like Miao Xian, even if Chen Hao was at the same level, he would not have an easy time, let alone now when he was one level lower. No matter how confident Old God was in Chen Hao, he could not help but worry at this moment. "Don't worry," Chen Hao said and directly cut off the mental communication with Old God. He looked at Wan Yishui and said, "Sister Shui, you wait at the side." "Fatty, don't worry. Do you think I'm afraid of a little girl who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth?" Chen Hao looked at Miao Xian provocatively and said. He deliberately looked very relaxed, but in fact, Chen Hao was really adjusting his mentality. The greater the pressure, the calmer he had to be. Of course, this was only an excuse on the surface. It was mainly for Miao Xian to hear. Secretly, Chen Hao said to Wan Yishui, "Even if you can't win, you can still escape. Don't worry, you just need to stay on my side." Wan Yishui naturally understood Chen Hao's intention. Staying on his side, it would be easier to escape when the time came. After all, the other party already knew of their existence. Chen Hao could not absorb Wan Yishui into his mind at this time. Daoyuo Jingxian could absorb living people. This secret could not be exposed unless it was absolutely necessary. "I hope your battle strength is as powerful as your mouth. There is still 1 minute," Miao Xian said indifferently. Chen Hao's deliberately mocking words did not even cause the slightest fluctuation in her emotions. This made Chen Hao feel more and more terrified of the other party. Perfect realm, transcendent state of mind. Such a person was no doubt a battle genius who could maintain the strongest battle strength at any time, and could even explode at any time. Why wait? Bang! A clear and melodious sword chime suddenly flashed out from between Chen Hao's eyebrows. The instant the sword appeared, it suddenly shook and emitted a rumbling sound. After that, the aura of the slaughter sword Dao shot into the sky. "Isn't he just a sword genius? I, Lord Fatty, will fight you with my sword today." Fatty said coldly. "Are you qualified? Since you're in a hurry to reincarnate, then make your move." 2 sharp sword lights suddenly flashed in Miao Xian's eyes. The corners of her mouth revealed a contemptuous smile as she said indifferently, "Sword." 1,000 years before entering the Emperor Star's secret realm, in the great world of Xiandi, no one in the same cultivation level as her was qualified to make her use her sword. If not for her master's prediction of this opportunity, she would have already stepped into the Hongmeng domain. With a flash of sword light, Chen Hao drew his sword and attacked. As soon as an expert made a move, one would know whether or not he was an expert. Chen Hao, who was the first to attack, condensed a majestic and terrifying sword intent and energy on his sword. He drew it but did not release it. He directly approached Miao Xian in the state of one with the sword. Without a doubt, this was a true sword duel. It was the most dangerous and exciting way to battle. It tested one's attainment in sword Dao. From the looks of it, Chen Hao was just casually holding the sword hilt, casually becoming one with the sword, and casually thrusting his sword. However, Miao Xian was unable to find a flaw in Chen Hao's fat body. Chen Hao's condensed sword chi and battle intent had condensed into a shapeless sword move. Miao Xian's long hair fluttered behind her as she stood before this formidable sword move, and her dress stuck to her body. She seemed as if she was standing before a violent gale, causing her graceful, exquisite, and curvaceous figure to be completely revealed. But, You're very confident. Your attainment in sword Dao has also exceeded my expectations. Unfortunately, you met me. Miao Xian's expression only changed for a moment before she said indifferently. At the same time, she lightly pointed at Chen Hao, who was one with the sword. Rumble. Rumble, how is this possible? So powerful. Is it really just Daluo Jingxian? Wan Yishui, who was sweating from Miao Xian in the distance, felt extremely horrified at this moment. His entire body felt unwell. Without a doubt, he became even more worried. A finger, a casual finger, but it directly sent Chen Hao, who was one with the sword, flying. What kind of finger was that? A terrifying killing intent was contained within it. Endless profound laws revolved within it. A terrifying power was contained within it. The moment it appeared, it seemed to have become the core of the world. Damn, she's actually so strong? Chen Hao, who was sent flying, was shocked. Although he was mentally prepared, he did not expect this woman to be so strong. This was truly beyond his expectations. I actually didn't hurt you? Miao Xian seemed to be slightly surprised as she looked at Miao Xian, who quickly stabilized his body while tumbling. His battle intent had become stronger, and his entire body was becoming fiercer and fiercer. This undoubtedly made Chen Hao very displeased, very displeased. Motherfucker, you want to hurt Lord Fatty with just a finger? It seems that I still underestimated you. You're just Daluo Golden Wonderland. To be able to comprehend sword force and use it is already 1 in 100 million. And your physical body, willpower, and state of mind can also be ranked among the top in the same realm. It's a bit of a pity to kill you like this. You talk too much nonsense. Feeling that he was severely humiliated, his confidence was severely damaged, and his invincible belief was once again thwarted. Chen Hao's battle-intent soared, and his rage overflowed. Boom! This sword, when it was unleashed, the mountains collapsed, and the earth trembled. The great 5 elements art condensed on the sword, and it blasted out. Very good. Buzz. Miao Xian saw that the power of Miao Xian's sword had suddenly increased by several times. Not only was she not worried, she even became a little excited as she spoke. As she spoke, her entire body trembled, and rays of bright light bloomed from her body. The light actually surrounded her entire body and condensed into the shadow of a treasured sword. Looking from afar, she seemed to have transformed into a treasured sword, or rather, her entire body was a sword. A sword with a monstrous aura and a sharp edge. Just like that, she faced Chen Hao and gently twirled her body. Like a dancing young girl, she swayed her slender waist. But a huge sword light suddenly appeared, carrying the might of heaven and earth, like a heavenly sword breaking through the sky. Boom! Rumble! Damn! Miao Xian's fat buttocks swayed wildly, and he once again tumbled and flew out. Fatty! In the distance, Wan Yishui could not help but cry out. Fortunately, Miao Xian only tumbled a few times, and once again stabilized his body, as if he was still uninjured. To be able to release the great 5 elements art in an instant, and condense it in the sword intent, your comprehension is also first-rate. Good your sister. If you have the ability, then have a good fight with me? Only know how to defend? You think Miao Xian only has this little ability? Can't you see that I can't even hurt a single hair on Miao Xian's body? Chapter 1332. Fatty really didn't know what this unbelievably powerful woman was up to. At the same time, the fatty was also extremely depressed. She was only at the Great Perfection realm, and he was only a little bit away from her. How could there be such a big gap between their combat strength? Chen Hao felt like he was a clown. Although he wasn't as miserable as an ant, the other party had indeed made him, who had used all his strength, look battered and exhausted. At this point, even if Chen Hao did not want to admit it, he had to admit that the body of a sword emperor was powerful. Moreover, he faintly felt that even if he had reached the Great Perfection realm, he would still not be this woman's match. This was because the realm of the Sword Dao and the ultimate Sword Dao skills that she had mastered were beyond his understanding. This was a comprehension that had completely surpassed the realm, and Chen Hao's comprehension that had already surpassed the realm. If you have any other skills, feel free to use them. If I'm satisfied, I'll spare your life. If your mouth is not clean, I'll kill her first. Buzz. Miao Xian's voice was still indifferent, and calm. Not a single fluctuation of emotions could be detected from her voice. However, as she spoke, she pointed her slender finger at Wan Yishui in the distance. A sword light that contained a terrifying pressure actually appeared above Wan Yishui's head out of thin air. There was no sign, nor was there any fluctuation of energy emitted from her body. However, it just appeared out of thin air. The Sword of Heaven and Earth. The Sword of Heaven and Earth was directly formed by borrowing the power of heaven and earth. Old God, what kind of monster is this? Is the body of a sword emperor so terrifying? Chen Hao looked at the flashing sword above Wan Yishui's head, as if it could chop down at any time. Wan Yishui seemed to have been suppressed by the pressure and was unable to move. He could not help but ask in his mind. In Chen Hao's mind, Old God was also shocked and terrified. He was well aware of how powerful the body of a sword emperor was, but he had never imagined that this woman's comprehension of the heavenly Dao laws, Sword Dao, Heart Realm, and will would have reached a level that transcended all realms. This was not something that could be described as perfection in the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland. Master, you don't have to be discouraged. This girl isn't just at the great circle of the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland. In my opinion, she must have been at the great circle of the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland for many years before she stepped into the Emperor Star's secret realm. She has already surpassed her realm in every aspect. Once she steps into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, she only needs to refine her energy to directly reach the great circle of the Hongmeng Supremacy realm. Once she reaches the Dao Severing stage, she won't just be at the first heaven of the Dao Severing stage. How is this possible? Chen Hao said in surprise. Then, without waiting for Old God to explain, Chen Hao continued, could it be related to the body of a sword emperor? That's right. The body of a sword emperor is based on the Sword Dao. In the process of cultivation, it can be said that there are no restrictions at all. Of course, I'm talking about the comprehension of the heavenly Dao laws and Sword Dao absolute arts. In other words, in the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland, she doesn't need to break through the barrier to reach a higher realm to comprehend the heavenly Dao laws and absolute arts of a higher realm. In other words, the one fighting with you now is a Daoyuo Jingxian at the great circle of the Daoyuo Jingxian realm. In fact, other than her absolute strength, she is definitely at the first heaven of the Dao Severing true immortal realm. So that's how it is. Chen Hao was enlightened. Master, take it easy. Due to the restrictions of the immortal Emperor Tomb's laws, I can't go out with my current realm. And fighting with you as one is only using your strength. My realm is still inferior to hers. In other words, I can't help you now. Old God continued. The Emperor Star's secret realm's laws were set against the Daoyuo Jingxian. After the Old God awakened, although his realm was one level higher than Chen Hao, he could only hide in Chen Hao's mind. Moreover, he had to use the profound mysteries in the deepest part of Chen Hao's mind that only the Old God could control to conceal his aura. Otherwise, even if he was in the mind, he, who had surpassed the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland, would be destroyed by the laws left behind by the immortal emperor. It was impossible for him to come out and help Chen Hao fight. Chen Hao was afraid of breaking the vases. He had the undying bloodline and had absolute confidence in his survival, so he had no problem. However, his opponent could actually move heaven and earth without any warning, condensing a terrifying sword light and directly controlling Wan Yishui. This was beyond his control. Therefore, Chen Hao had no choice but to obediently keep his mouth shut. What do you want? Chen Hao asked. Very simple. Attack me. If you can injure me even a little, you won't die. Or take my edits. If you don't die within 3 moves, I will spare your lives. Don't even think about escaping. Otherwise, she will be the first to die. Miao Xian said with a faint smile. However, Chen Hao believed that this woman would do as she said. Although he didn't dare to say anything, he was cursing in his heart. How could this woman be so perverted at such a young age? Torturing others and seeking to be tormented? Damn it. It was probably because high and lonely, great voice Ruashi, and expert had been lonely for so many years that they had become perverted. Otherwise, why would they have such thoughts? If this wasn't despicable, then what was? That's what you said. Boom. Crack, 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 crack. Chen Hao gnashed his teeth as he spoke. At the same time, the vital energy and blood in his body suddenly surged out, causing his bones, tendons, and blood to emit waves of crackling sounds at this moment, and his fat body directly shrunk to a third of its original size. Come, I will take your 3 moves. Chen Hao decisively made his choice. Although Chen Hao didn't use his strongest attack in the previous 2 attacks, the difference wasn't big. Miao Xian's relaxed appearance made Chen Hao not have the slightest confidence that he could injure her. He could only choose to take her 3 attacks. This was the second time in his life that Chen Hao had been forced to this extent by a woman. The first time was Mainyang with the innate Taoist embryo. However, after enduring some years of depression, he counterattacked and intimidated her. Now, she was his woman. It was just that she hadn't stepped over the last line of defense. And Miao Xian with the sword emperor body was the second. The advantage of the innate physique was obvious. What a strong blood and qi. And it's an extremely pure immortal bloodline? You have also condensed the undying sword will? Miao Xian revealed a real look of surprise this time. She stared at the fat man and said, "Fatty, your concealment technique is really powerful. In the same realm, there are very few people who can hide from my perception. However, you have made me wrong again and again. In this world, except for the Great Change Movement technique, I really can't think of any other concealment technique that can do this. If I'm not wrong, you must have cultivated the Great Change Movement technique to the ultimate level, right?" Chen Hao cursed secretly. He didn't expect that when he released his strongest physical aura, this woman could see so many problems. She even directly guessed that it was the Great Change Movement technique. Chapter 1333. Since you're not speaking, it means that I'm right, right? The Great 5 Elements art and the Great Change art have both reached the ultimate level. This should be your limit. Miao Xian suddenly looked up at the sky and frowned slightly. "Senior brother, are you still following me?" A sword light suddenly flashed past, and a figure that stood upright like a sword floated down from the void. Chen Hao gritted his teeth so hard that they creaked. The powerful perception that he was so confident in had completely lost its effectiveness when he was in the state of, "I am heaven and earth are me." Therefore, he had not sensed the arrival of this youth at all. Even more so, he did not expect that this youth was also a powerful existence that he had met once before but had not clashed with. They were both at the perfection stage. He also did not expect that he was this woman's senior brother. "Junior sister, it's just a coincidence. As far as I know, this brother is the chief disciple of the Dehua Academy, Li Yuan. He's proficient in the great teleportation art. I happened to see the conflict with Xiao Mantian and his wife 10,000 years ago." "What did you say?" Miao Xian frowned and looked at senior brother Qin Yang. She seemed to doubt the authenticity of Qin Yang's words. "That's the truth. The Great 5 Elements art, the Great Change art, the Great Teleportation art. 3 of the 3,000 Great Daos have all reached the ultimate level. I think Brother Li Yuan should be one of the spirits of all things that have awakened, right? When the Emperor Star appears, the Celestial Emperor comes out. I knew that I would meet you, but I didn't expect to meet you so soon. Junior sister, is there a misunderstanding between you two?" His aura was extraordinary as he spoke with a faint smile. Chen Hao's face was conflicted and gloomy. Deny it? Someone had to believe it. For this girl who was obviously confident to the point of conceit, even if she was just speculating, it would not be easy to change her mind. There was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. Since he had used 3 Great Tao techniques, he had to be prepared for the possibility of being exposed. Now, the arrival of this young man had exposed Chen Hao. However, Chen Hao did not say anything at this moment. From Qin Yang's attitude and words, Chen Hao did not feel any hostility. On the contrary, it seemed that he had deliberately revealed that he had mastered 3 great Dao techniques to attract his junior sister's attention and resolve the conflict between them. Are you done? Miao Xian fixed her eyes on Qin Yang, gradually revealing a trace of coldness. Junior sister, you may leave now, senior brother. Junior sister, Master said. If you say one more word, don't blame me for disregarding our relationship as fellow disciples. Also, senior brother, I'm warning you, don't follow me anymore. No matter what happens, this is my fate, and it has nothing to do with anyone else. My life is mine. You go. At this moment, Miao Xian's body emitted a terrifying and vast sword qi. It was as if she had turned into a sharp sword. All right then. At this moment, Qin Yang said with a slightly embarrassed expression. To him, Miao Xian's aura was even more terrifying than Chen Hao's, because he was born with the Sword Emperor physique. In front of his junior sister Miao Xian's Sword Emperor aura, an invisible thought of surrendering was born. Shaking his head, Qin Yang turned around and left. He knew that he couldn't interfere in junior sister's matters anymore. Whether it was a calamity or fate, she could only resign herself to fate and make her own choice. Perhaps it's not him. After all, he already has a Dao companion. When Qin Yang left, he glanced at Chen Hao and thought to himself. According to their master's divination, Miao Xian would face the greatest calamity in her life in the Emperor's Star's secret realm. At the same time, she would also meet the person she was destined to meet. That was a man who could suppress her. According to their master, perhaps there was only one man in the world who could suppress her, who had the Sword Emperor physique. However, as for who it was, they couldn't deduce it clearly. Although this Li Yuan might be the reincarnation of an immortal emperor, his potential in the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland is still too weak. In front of junior sister, there's no need to talk about suppression. Young Master Saber and Sword Ding Hao and young Master Shinxing Feng Wuxing might be able to reach the Absolute Circle realm, but only a little. Xiao Mantian isn't worthy. The biggest possibility is that he's the spirit of all things born in the immortal emperor space. Will he be in the coffin of the immortal emperor tomb, or at the top of the azure cloud stairs? Qin Yang, who was thinking about the problem in his mind, gradually went further and further away as if he was taking a stroll in the courtyard. Soon he disappeared. The reincarnation of an immortal emperor? What I said still counts. Are you ready? After confirming that senior brother Qin Yang had really left, Miao Xian regained her calm appearance and stared at Chen Hao. This made Chen Hao a little puzzled. However, now was obviously not the time to think about these problems. The first thing he had to do was to withstand the attack of this abnormal woman. The identity of the spirit of all things was not enough to deter this strong and confident woman. Come, I hope you'll keep your word. His skills were not as good as his opponents, so he could only follow the rhythm and method arranged by the other party. When he was alone, he could fight with his life on the line, he could escape at all costs, and he could even blend into the world. However, Wan Yishui had become the other party's weakness. He had no choice but to swallow his anger. I've always kept my word. First move. This. Miao Xian still casually formed a sword finger and lightly pointed at Chen Hao. There was not much fluctuation, nor was there a vast and terrifying sword light. There was only a slight sound of breaking through the air from that slender and sparkling finger, shooting towards Chen Hao. However, at this moment, the world seemed to have stopped because of her casual finger. All sound disappeared, and all light dimmed. In the eyes of Chen Hao, in the eyes of the imprisoned Wan Yishui, and even in the eyes of the old god who was secretly watching in Chen Hao's mind, there was only that sparkling and translucent jade-like sword light left in the world. It was as if the laws of time and space had slowed down. The jade-like sword light slowly grew larger in Chen Hao's eyes. However, at the same time, Chen Hao's thoughts also slowed down. He could not react in time. In other words, his mind was captured by this sword light and became sluggish. In the process of the sword light growing larger, the light became more and more resplendent. At this time, There was also an astonishing surge of heaven and earth spirit chi, which gathered in the sword finger. Chen Hao's pupils shrank smaller and smaller. The pulsing between his eyebrows became stronger and stronger, and the pressure he felt became stronger and stronger. However, he just watched, as if his mind had really fallen into an illusion, and did not have any reaction. Fatty! 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 Master! Master, wake up! At this time, Wan Yishui, who was only watching from afar, although his body had been imprisoned by the sword light, still forcefully took a breath and shouted at Chen Hao in horror. At the same time, the old god, who was also in a daze, also roared in Chen Hao's mind. However, Chen Hao did not seem to hear. Chapter 1334. Strange, his state of mind is obviously very strong. How could his mind be affected so easily? Miao Xian had only used 80% of her strength in the first attack. In her opinion, although the fatty would be injured, he should be able to block this attack. However, what she didn't expect was that the fatty would be affected by her sword intent, which contained the aura of a sword emperor, and fall into a daze. According to her judgment of the fatty's overall strength, this shouldn't be the case. I've already slowed down a lot. Since you're going to die under my sword, you can't blame me. It's fate. It seems like I've thought too much. This fatty isn't even qualified. Seeing that the sword light was about to reach the center of Chen Hao's eyebrows, and that the fatty still hadn't woken up, Miao Xian muttered to herself. However, before she could finish her sentence, her eyes suddenly trembled and her pupils instantly shrank. Ah! The fatty suddenly let out a thunderous roar. Between Chen Hao's violently pulsating eyebrows, an incomparably sharp golden light blossomed. A black eye shining with golden light actually appeared between Chen Hao's eyebrows. It was not an illusion, but a real eye. Demonic, cold, emotionless, disdainful, a cold, disdainful aura swept out from the demonic black eye. As the golden black eye appeared, Chen Hao didn't stop at all. At the critical moment when Miao Xian's sword finger was about to reach him, he stabbed out with his sword. The extremely bright and condensed golden light seemed to cut through the void. Wherever it passed, the space was distorted. At this moment, the expression in Miao Xian's eyes changed drastically. An indescribable feeling spread out from the depths of her heart. Boom! Rumble! When the sword light and the sword finger met, a terrifying explosion and bright light swept out in all directions. The mountains collapsed and the earth cracked, and dust flew everywhere. Although Chen Hao had unleashed an ability that shocked Miao Xian, under the divine abilities law, which was completely beyond his realm, he was still sent flying by the terrifying recoil. However, unlike before when he was sent flying, his eyes were terrifyingly calm. His body didn't suffer any injuries, and the demonic black eye between his eyebrows was still shining with golden light. Supernatural ability? Miao Xian stared at Chen Hao's bewitching eyes from afar and asked in surprise. The opening of the spiritual altar eye was a legend, but it was only a legend. At least, Miao Xian had never seen or heard of it. In the great 1,000 worlds of the immortal emperors, there was someone who had opened this special ability. At most, it was just a shadow. However, a vertical eye had really appeared between Chen Hao's eyebrows. Most importantly, the golden glow emitted by the demonic eyes was able to nullify Sword Monarch Miao Xuan's aura. At the same time, when the golden light landed on her body, Miao Xian had a feeling that she had been seen through, which made her feel very uncomfortable. Not bad. One move. Chen Hao said in a low voice with a deadly earnest expression. There was nothing he could do about it. With Wan Yishui around, he didn't dare to act recklessly against such a powerful and domineering woman. If he said something wrong, Wan Yishui might be killed. That wasn't what Chen Hao wanted. However, at this moment, Chen Hao's heart was extremely agitated under his calm appearance. Under the double pressure of Miao Xian's invincible aura and Sword Monarch aura, his fiery golden eyes finally had a new upgrade. Break illusion. Break the illusory but real aura. As everyone knew, aura only affected the living and conscious people. It had no effect on a dead person who had lost consciousness. It was like playing the lute to a cow. because aura directly affected people's hearts, minds, and states of mind. To be exact, what it really affected was only the soul consciousness. It could be said to be the most mysterious kind of illusion. Whether it was the invincible aura or the sword monarch aura, they were all a kind of aura. However, Chen Hao's fiery golden eyes had evolved to the level of break illusion, which made the effect of aura disappear completely. The only thing that could really affect Chen Hao was the substantial pressure brought by the opponent's strong fighting spirit and energy fluctuation. Everything in the mind couldn't cause the slightest fluctuation in Chen Hao's state of mind under the special ability of break illusion eyes. Before his fiery golden eyes had broken through to the Powang realm, Chen Hao felt as if there was a huge mountain pressing down on his chest under Miao Xian's power. No matter what he did, his reaction was slow and sluggish. It was only slightly better than the feeling of being unable to move even if he wanted to. But now, the mountain had disappeared. Although Chen Hao's strength didn't increase, his whole body became more agile. What's the function? Miao Xian asked again with a smile. Even if she was smiling, others couldn't see any fluctuation in her emotions. The only feeling they had was that she was a high and mighty empress who made people worship her. And her questions seemed to be a matter of course for everyone to answer. Unfortunately, this so-called aura of a king completely disappeared in Chen Hao's eyes, but Chen Hao had to answer. Break illusion. Chen Hao said directly. Break illusion? Illusion, all illusions and all illusions, including aura? Your aura no longer has any influence on me, Chen Hao said calmly, his eyes moving around Miao Xian's body. There's another function, right? No. Hua. Chen Hao was slightly surprised. His eyes were fixed on Miao Xian's graceful and exquisite body, which was completely naked in his eyes. Because on Miao Xian's slender right leg, there was a treasured sword, which was made up of many mysterious runes. Chen Hao couldn't help but want to take a closer look at it at first glance. But at this time, with Miao Xian's words, it directly collapsed and disappeared. Not good. What a shrewd woman. Chen Hao knew that he had jumped into the hole dug by Miao Xian. The fact was indeed so. When Miao Xian saw that Chen Hao's eye ability had been activated, her sure had no effect at all. When the other party's gaze landed on her, she felt as if she had been seen through. Thus, she buried this trap on her thigh. Sure enough, after Chen Hao's seemingly careless gaze fell on her body, he looked even more at her thigh. What did this mean? That's it? Do you believe it? Haven't you seen enough? What a powerful supernatural ability. Very good. What I said before, I still keep my word. There are still 2 more moves. If you die, I may be able to pass on your special ability. Miao Xian's tone was still calm, but at this moment, her face turned slightly red, and the gaze she looked at Chen Hao with was countless times colder, as if she was looking at a dead person. She was arrogant, destined to step onto the peak of martial arts, and become the sword emperor of a generation. How could she allow anyone to see her jade body? Even if the other party was only using his special ability, and didn't have the slightest lust to stay on the key parts of her body, she would never allow the person who saw her to live. Chapter 1335. Miao Xian was also unhappy in her heart. Her perfect figure, her proud breasts. This fatty clearly saw them, but he didn't stop at all. Wasn't this ignoring her attractiveness? Of course, this was only a subconscious feeling in the depths of her heart. She didn't show it. As Miao Xian spoke, a strong and ice-cold murderous aura swept out from her graceful and delicate body. Bang! Wu! A clear and melodious sword sound suddenly burst out. A silver sword with a cold aura appeared in her hand. It looked ordinary, without any spell symbols engraved on it. However, in Miao Xian's hand, it automatically vibrated excitedly and made a sound that sounded like a baby's cry. What a powerful sword spirit! At this time, Chen Hao could clearly feel that Miao Xian's aura was completely different from before. Before, even when she was bullying Chen Hao and Wan Yishui, she didn't have the kind of killing intent that came from her bones. But now, Chen Hao could be sure that she really had the intention to kill because of his special ability. It could only be said that this woman was too shrewd. Of course, her intuition was also very strong. That was why she dug this hole and made Chen Hao reveal that his special ability didn't have the ability to see through things. Now, Chen Hao couldn't deny it even if he wanted to. What if I don't die after 2 moves? Chen Hao asked. Impossible. Miao Xian said with certainty. With me, anything is possible. Facing a person with a murderous aura, Chen Hao was very clear that he had no way out. There was no meaning in enduring. He stood proudly and his eyes were like swords. He didn't give in at all. I'll keep my word. If you can hold on, I'll spare your life. Unfortunately, it's impossible in front of me. This. Following Miao Xian's voice, her body began to bloom with a bright light. Her whole person slowly turned into a sword. Endless pressure and terrifying sword intent gushed out, causing the heaven and earth to shake. Die! Boom! Miao Xian, who had become one with heaven, earth, man, and sword, tore through the void and rushed out. What made Chen Hao's pupils shrink was that Miao Xian had actually unleashed 3 types of sword daos that were way beyond his level of comprehension. The slaughter sword dao, the destruction sword dao, and the undying sword dao. With destruction as the foundation, slaughter as the edge, and indestructibility as the tail seal. Destruction, slaughter, and seal, they were perfectly fused together. Roar! Chen Hao let out a furious roar as he crazily gathered all of his cultivation. His body, bloodline, true essence, soul, state of mind, willpower, and the runes that Chen Hao had never used before but had successfully condensed in his body were all madly activated. Could they withstand it? Even Chen Hao himself wasn't sure. He only knew that Miao Xian's strike was way beyond his level, except for the absolute strength. The terrifying fluctuations made Wan Yishui, who was far away, sweat for Chen Hao. Even though she didn't know what was going on, she could sense that Fatty was facing a life and death situation. She knew very well that the main reason why Fatty was facing it head-on was because of her, but she couldn't do anything to help him. But now, she was no longer nervous. If they were going to die, then they would die together. Unlike Wan Yishui, who was nervous, she didn't have any intention of giving up. Her mind was operating at high speed. Once there was a problem, it would be the time for her to desperately help. Boom! Rumble! The moment the two met, a terrifying explosion raged. The void collapsed, the Tao was annihilated, and even the supreme laws in the immortal Emperor tomb showed terrifying fluctuations. The raging energy seemed to have detonated the entire sky. Mountains were directly annihilated, the earth was lifted, dust billowed, and stone fragments swirled in the air. This was the immortal Emperor tomb. Every grain of sand, stone, grass, and tree had been condensed by endless pressure. If such a terrifying fluctuation appeared, what would it be like in the outside world? You didn't die? In the billowing dust, Miao Xian's cold voice came out. Wan Yishui, who was prepared to die for love, was stunned for a moment, and then she became excited. Ha! I thought you were strong, but I didn't expect you to be so weak. No matter how high your realm of comprehension is, it is still a realm of comprehension, not your own realm. You are limited by absolute power and absolute realm. Can you fight me? When the dust settled, a fat body crawled out from the dust. Although his body was covered in blood, and the corners of his mouth were still uncontrollably bleeding, he stood up proudly and firmly, and slowly rose into the air. His pitch-black eyes were still deep and clear, and the demonic vertical eye between his eyebrows was even more dazzling. Is that so? Buzz. Miao Xian's body was still spotless and unharmed. After a short moment of shock, her aura suddenly soared again. Her long hair fluttered without wind, and the corners of her dress fluttered. Her crystal-clear spiritual altar bloomed with a bright light at this moment. You are the first one who can force me to use my strongest power. Even if you die, you can be proud. It was still the combination of heaven, earth, man, and sword, and it was still rushing towards Chen Hao, but this time the speed of flying was much slower, and there was no terrifying fluctuation caused by the previous sword. Gently, simply, and seemingly without any power, it flew towards Chen Hao, who had just crawled up. Her graceful and exquisite body, her long hair fluttering in the wind, her beautiful and otherworldly face, and her emotionless eyes. At this slow speed, they were clearly magnified in Chen Hao's pupils. Even though the demonic vertical eye could see more and was more erotic at this moment, Chen Hao's hair stood on end. There was no trace of lust in his heart. There was only a kind of threat that came from the depths of his soul. In spirit attack. Master, be careful. Old God said in shock in Chen Hao's mind. In spirit? Isn't it just a soul attack? No, the soul is divided into the soul, and the soul is divided into yin and yang. Master, you can only use the yang spirit now. In the immortal emperor space, you cultivated the yin spirit. When you step on the path of the immortal emperor, your yin spirit and yang spirit will become one. Master, let me do it. This is not something you can resist. You don't even know the most basic mystery of the yin and yang spirit. Buzz. Old God's spirit moved, and he seemed to be extremely nervous. The yin and yang spirit theory? Old God's words reminded Chen Hao of what Yang Luyan in the immortal world had said to him. That is to say, a cultivator has two sides, one yin and one yang. I am now cultivating the yang spirit, and in the immortal world, I am cultivating the yin spirit. When the two sides become one, I will step on the path of the immortal emperor. Yin spirit and yang spirit are like the left hand and the right hand, right? Chapter 1336. That's true, but I don't want to leave behind an irreparable regret. Chen Hao interrupted the old god, who was still trying to persuade him. After saying that, he directly cut off the mental connection between the two and made his choice. At this moment, life and death, love and love, they were all thrown to the back of Chen Hao's mind. There was only battle in his heart, a battle that did not care about the consequences, a battle that did not care about the cost. His invincible momentum had already been left behind when he met Xiao Mantian and his wife, and when he avoided young Master Saber and Sword Ding Hao, young Master Xinxing, Feng Wuxing, Miao Xian, Qin Yang, and the others. Today, it could be said that his invincible momentum was already gone when he faced Miao Xian head-on. The only thing left was an unyielding belief. If he let the old god control his body and make a move, it would probably become an irreparable regret in his mind. Cultivators go against the heavens. The further one went, the higher the requirement for one's mind. Any flaw in one's mind could become a factor that could restrict one's progress. This was something Chen Hao did not want to see. The great Tao was emotionless. Perhaps it really referred to the emotionlessness of having no attachments and looking down on life and death. Chen Hao moved. Throwing away all distracting thoughts, Shi Yan's body, soul, and mind had completely merged with Miao Xian's aura. His super-strong soul perception captured all the subtle fluctuations, while his brain was operating at a terrifyingly high speed. He wanted to sense the yin spirit. In a domain that he had never touched before, he wanted to find a flaw. At the same time, Chen Hao was also prepared to bear all the consequences. The sound of the great Tao rumbled in his mind. The profound scriptures of nirvana of the true self resounded in his mind. The strongest mysteries of the great fates flowed in his mind. The highest heavenly Tao laws that he had comprehended were all activated. Most importantly, all of his strength had been fused into his own great Tao. The strongest was his own. Everything he had learned had been fused into one. But, impossible, there's no time at all. Chen Hao, who had focused all his attention on finding the opponent's flaw, made a judgment in an instant. It was a domain that he had never touched before. For a moment, he did not know where to start. Why should I defend? Your yin spirit killed my yin spirit, my yang spirit killed your yang spirit. Almost instantly, Chen Hao made another decision. Speaking of which, all of this happened in the blink of an eye. This was the strength of a master's divine sense. If it was an ordinary person, they wouldn't have the time to think about it. They would never be able to think about it. Chen Hao let out a furious roar and erupted with madness. The madness of the berserk devil realm was completely unleashed. Stop killing by killing, and fight for life with life. At this moment, Chen Hao's essence, energy, spirit, and strength had increased exponentially. All of his potential had been completely stimulated. This was his strongest state. Boom! Chen Hao suddenly shot up into the sky like an arrow that had left the bow, and he slashed out with his sword towards Miao Xian, who was flying over slowly but was unable to stop him. The two of them finally met. Old God was so nervous that his body trembled slightly. Even he could not predict the outcome. Wan Yishui held his breath and prayed silently. However, what Old God expected and what Wan Yishui didn't expect was that the two's bodies and their respective sword lights directly pierced through each other like shadows. There was no explosion after the collision of energy. Even the original aura didn't change in the slightest. They just passed by each other like that. After a certain distance, the two of them stopped in the void at the same time. They turned around and looked at each other directly. At this moment, time seemed to have stopped, and the whole world fell into stillness. It seemed to be a few seconds, but it also seemed to be hundreds of years. Bang! Boom! Boom! Ah! Wan Yishui suddenly let out a scream full of surprise. She covered her mouth, and her eyes overflowed with tears of excitement uncontrollably, because she saw that the powerful Miao Xian's body was exploding continuously. Even the space between her eyebrows exploded. It was too horrible to look at. However, Chen Hao only showed a trace of pain on his face. How could she not be excited? However, what Wan Yishui didn't know was that in the depths of Chen Hao's mind, in the Soul Palace, his soul that had always been invincible at the same level was instantly riddled with holes. Although the space between his eyebrows didn't explode, the degree of injury was definitely not less than Miao Xian's. What was more terrifying was that Chen Hao clearly felt that there was a large amount of vitality in every cell of his body. The vitality that Chen Hao had never excavated before was annihilated. This feeling clearly told Chen Hao that if all the cells in his body were in such a situation, even if he had an immortal body, he wouldn't be able to recover. Chen Hao wanted to stop this annihilation. Unfortunately, no matter how he operated his divine thoughts and genuine essence, he couldn't stop it at all. In an instant, a terrifying flame began to rise from Chen Hao's blood, bone marrow, and soul. Heat, boundless heat. Chen Hao felt that he had become an ant on a hot pan. His body felt like it was about to explode. It was a kind of heat that came from the depths of his soul and bone marrow. Chen Hao finally couldn't control himself. He howled crazily, and his eyes instantly turned scarlet. At this moment, Wan Yishui, who was full of surprise, suddenly widened her eyes, which then turned into endless worry and anxiety. What happened? Boom! Uncontrollably, Chen Hao's body burned by itself. The aura of the raging fire was countless times stronger than any flame Wan Yishui had ever seen. It was not only burning the body, but also the soul. Ah! Almost at the same time, on the other side, Miao Xian also screamed in pain. She didn't expect that this fatty would be so powerful when he really burst out. Until now, when she was about to lose her mind, her master and senior brother's repeated reminders appeared in her mind. Indeed, defying the heavens wasn't something that could be done every time. Wan Yishui, who came back to her senses, saw an incredible scene. Miao Xian, whose body had exploded and a bloody hole had appeared between her eyebrows, was emitting a terrifying chill. At such a distance, Wan Yishui felt like her soul was being frozen. One fire, one ice, what was going on? The sword light that deterred Wan Yishui had long disappeared, but at this time, Wan Yishui not only couldn't take a step forward, but also had to constantly retreat. The feeling of ice and fire was too terrifying. Not to mention getting close to the two. If she was a little slower, she might be burned to ashes or frozen into ice. There was absolutely no suspense. Then, when Wan Yishui retreated to a safe distance and finally felt a little better, the scene that suddenly appeared made her feel unwell. Chapter 1337. One seemed to want to burn the heavens and earth, the other seemed to want to freeze the universe. The aura of ice and fire spread out, meeting in the middle of the two. The fire was unable to extinguish the coldness of the ice, and the ice was unable to dissolve the heat of the fire. After a short stalemate, when they discovered that no one could do anything to the other, a shocking scene occurred. The fusion of ice and fire, a perfect balance, without any flaws, miraculously entangled everything. In just an instant, it was as if they had reached a delicate balance of yin and yang. Although Chen Hao and Miao Xian were still separated by a great distance, but the aura of the two was like a pair of Tao companions, whispering to each other, flowing endlessly. But what made Wan Yishui feel uncomfortable was that after their aura had merged, the two people who were still screaming in pain suddenly stopped at the same time. A pair of blood-red eyes and a pair of ice-blue eyes met in the air, and at the same time, a burning desire and passion flashed in their eyes. The feeling was like two lost lambs suddenly seeing the light that belonged to them. They moved at the same time. Under the guidance of the blended aura, they quickly approached each other, until their bodies were completely stuck together. Wan Yishui opened her eyes wide. Her heart inexplicably twitched. But she could not stop it, she did not have the ability to stop it, nor did she dare to stop it. Because, although she did not know what had happened to the two of them, but she knew that the two of them had fallen into a dangerous situation where they could not control themselves, or it could be said that they were on the verge of life and death. Chen Hao's burning aura, Miao Xian's ice-cold aura, any one of them was enough to destroy Wan Yishui's body and soul. How could they bear the brunt of it? If they could bear it, they would not have screamed and lost their minds. And when the two of them were close together, Wan Yishui could clearly feel that the two of them were like two sides of yin and yang that complemented each other. A peaceful, tranquil, and extremely subtle aura was quietly born between the two of them. A moment later, with the two of them as the core, the ice and fire of the entire world had completely merged together. In a very short period of time, they had reached a subtle balance. Not to mention Chen Hao and Miao Xian, who were at the core, even Wan Yishui, who was far away, felt an indescribably comfortable feeling. This was even more comfortable and intoxicating than the time when she and Chen Hao's spirit and flesh merged. What was going on? Wan Yishui couldn't understand it at all. He only knew that it was similar to the fusion of spirit and flesh, but it was beyond the scope of the fusion of spirit and flesh. The fire on Chen Hao's body was still burning, and the ice on Miao Xian's body was still spreading. Furthermore, it didn't seem to have weakened at all. Only the outside had calmed down, but the inside was still the same. The two people who had lost their rationality were no longer satisfied with the current situation and took a step further. Neither of them forced the other, neither took the initiative, nor was it passive. The two of them kissed each other almost at the same time. The bridge was directly connected. Ice and fire instantly blended together through the bridge built by their tongues, forming a small cycle. An even more intoxicating aura swept out. Wan Yishui's eyes were wide open. Although he tried his best to stay awake, at this time, he could not resist the intoxicating aura. He naturally sank into the boundless comfort, and the green jade ripple technique was activated involuntarily. What was more astonishing was that at this moment, Chen Hao and Miao Xian's incomparably intoxicating aura allowed Wan Yishui to have a greater understanding of the green jade ripple technique. It gave Wan Yishui the feeling that a door to a wider space had been opened. The profound meaning of the green jade ripple technique, when Wan Yishui was immersed in enlightenment, quickly swept out. A moment later, it blended into the ice and fire aura of Chen Hao and Miao Xian without any hindrance. Like the wind aiding the fire, with a boom, the ice and fire aura instantly intensified by several times, but it magically maintained a balanced and lingering posture. Just like the profound meaning of the green jade ripple technique during dual cultivation. And it was also at this moment that Wan Yishui, Chen Hao and Miao Xian slowly rose into the air at the same time and began to approach each other. Everything was happening in the subconscious of the three of them. Wan Yishui's subconscious was enlightened, while Chen Hao and Miao Xian's subconscious was united with the desire to survive after the endless pain and collapse of their minds. Everything happened naturally. Very quickly, the small cycle brought about by the bridge was once again unable to satisfy the needs of Chen Hao and Miao Xian. because the completely opposite state in their bodies could not be stopped. The most primitive desire, the innate skill, the human instinct to reproduce, came naturally. Even if it was his subconscious mind, even if it was his instinct to seek life, when he broke through Miao Xian's sacred secret realm, Chen Hao still let out a roar that sounded like the awakening of an ancient beast. At this moment, Miao Xian, who was completely controlled by her subconscious mind, let out a groan, and a trace of pain appeared on her face. In just an instant, a trace of consciousness appeared in Miao Xian's unconscious mind. She wanted to struggle, wanted to resist, but the control of the subconscious made her crazily cater, twisting her waist, crazily exerting her strength, and the sudden descent of the great cycle, the endless comfort brought about by the fusion of ice and fire, made her lose all ability to resist. At this moment, her subconscious mind had taken over the absolute dominant position. Her wisp of consciousness was only left with endless desolation, sorrow, and regret. She, who had the body of a sword emperor, had actually become someone else's woman. And it was not forced by anyone. Her consciousness was unable to accept it, but she could not resist it. She was clear about what had happened, and also knew why this had happened. At the same time, she also understood that she could not escape the great calamity that her master had mentioned. Opportunity? She did not think that she had any opportunity. Having lost her primordial Yin body, even if she had the body of a sword emperor, she could no longer be proud. In the true fusion of Yin and Yang, sparkling and translucent tears flowed from the eyes of this proud, insufferably arrogant woman, falling in the ice and fire. No one noticed and no one would notice. She regretted being too confident, regretted not listening to her master and senior brother, regretted not letting her senior brother follow. Everything was already irreversible. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Mysterious auras floated between the three of them. Wan Yishui only approached the place where the aura was the thickest and most comfortable, which was beside the two of them, but did not participate. She was only immersed in the enlightenment of the azure silk blue ripple art, blending with the aura of the two. As for Chen Hao and Miao Xian, who had truly entered the great cycle, but could only be considered as half of the fusion of spirit and body, they were performing the most primitive throbbing. The effect of half of the fusion of Yin and Yang was better than the normal fusion of all Yin and Yang, because the two of them had joined together subconsciously. Although there were no feelings, the desire to survive that came from their subconscious was very, very strong. Chapter 1338. When the ice and fire reached a delicate balance and formed a big cycle in their bodies, Chen Hao's Yin spirit, which was almost destroyed but could not be seen or touched, finally began to recover bit by bit under the fusion of Miao Xian's Yin spirit. Miao Xian's Yang spirit, which was almost destroyed, also began to recover under the fusion of Chen Hao's Yang spirit. If a top expert knew about their situation, they would be shocked to death. This was definitely not something that anyone could do. The level of danger could be said to be impossible, but various coincidences allowed the two to do it. The two souls, state of mind, and willpower were equal. If either was a little stronger, they would both die. The two injured each other to the point of destruction, but they did not completely destroy each other. Because of this, when their Yin spirit or Yang spirit was heavily injured, the other spirit had a huge advantage. The balance between Yin and Yang was completely broken, and one was burning and the other was frozen. If not, they would both die. And at this time, the two's strong willpower and desire to survive were not completely annihilated in the endless pain. Otherwise, they would both die. Phew! Yin spirit, is this my Yin spirit? After an unknown period of time, Chen Hao, who seemed to have completely fallen into madness and was controlled by his subconscious, muttered in his mind. His body could clearly feel the graceful and exquisite body below him. Every time he moved, he could feel the other party's response. It had to be said that this feeling was very intoxicating. Of course, this was without thinking about who the other party was. Chen Hao naturally knew who it was. Such a dramatic reversal, although it was forced, again, Chen Hao really had a headache. When would this great luck with women end? How many women would he send to me? Just like that, another fucking one came. Moreover, it was the beautiful and powerful body of the Sword Emperor. Even he was no match for it. If the other party had not agreed to 3 moves, if she had not used the Yin spirit attack, forcing him to fight with his life, Chen Hao would have to admit that the one who would die would definitely be him and not her. But now, this arrogant, powerful and beautiful woman who had been wagging her tail in front of him was now under his body, and she was even. Chen Hao couldn't describe this feeling. It felt good and complicated. It won't be long before my Yin spirit is fully recovered. Chen Hao thought to himself as he sensed the changes in every cell in his body. Before this, he would never have been able to sense the existence of the Yin Master, because it was a domain that he had never touched before. But now, his Yin spirit was severely injured, and it was slowly recovering. The clear stimulation made him realize what kind of existence the Yin spirit was. Compared to the Sun spirit, it was like the front and back of the same substance. Of course, this was only Chen Hao's current understanding. Only by stepping on the path of the immortal emperor or learning the yin-yang theory of souls would he be able to understand a little bit. Everything in the world had yin and yang, and the profoundness of yin and yang could be said to accompany a cultivator for life. The more one comprehended, the more profound it felt. Even a true immortal king wouldn't dare to say that he had truly comprehended yin and yang, and even an immortal emperor wouldn't dare to say that he had truly jumped out of yin and yang. What a powerful profoundness! Damn, just the profoundness of the Sword Dao in this primordial yin would take me a long time to comprehend. It's many times stronger than Sister Shui's primordial yin. Chen Hao could clearly feel a warm energy flowing through his meridians. Without a doubt, it was Miao Xian's primordial yin. To be able to obtain the primordial yin of such a powerful woman was definitely a rare opportunity for Chen Hao. Even if he only obtained this in the Emperor's Star's secret realm, it would be worth it. Because this was the primordial yin of the Sword Emperor's body, which contained the strongest inheritance of the Sword Dao. Of course, the prerequisite was that Chen Hao's comprehension was enough. How do I face this woman? Damn, strictly speaking, this woman isn't a bad person. It's normal for her to forcefully take over this place. She has the strength, just like how I forcefully took over the Azure Cloud staircase. Moreover, she didn't really have any killing intent at the start. The real reason for her killing intent seems to be because she discovered that I had seen her naked with my fiery golden eyes. Chen Hao's strand of consciousness was pondering over the current situation. Damn, this doesn't seem to be a problem for me to consider. Chen Hao's injuries were recovering, but weren't Miao Xian's injuries recovering as well? This woman was so powerful that it made one's hair stand on end. He had only seen her jade body through his special ability, and he had truly wanted to kill her. But now it was a true blasphemy. He had obtained her naked body. What would happen when this woman truly recovered and woke up? At the very least, Chen Hao wouldn't be able to control it, because Chen Hao was clear that Miao Xian's current state should be the same as his. Both of them were under the control of their subconscious and couldn't do anything about it. It was just a strand of consciousness that wasn't worth mentioning. Once the two's yin and yang merged and completely healed their injuries, it would be the time for their subconscious to retreat and take control of themselves. At that time, this woman might go crazy and really want to kill him. He could only escape, and he might not even be able to escape, kill. No one can defile me. No one. No one. I want to kill him. Kill him. So what if you kill him? I said 3 moves, 3 moves. All of this is the subconscious, the subconscious. It's not what he wants, nor is it what I want, but it happened. This is fate? This is the destined man? If I kill him, then it's not destined. No, even if I kill him, he's already the man who has taken me. Great tribulation, opportunity. Is it tribulation or fate? I don't know. I don't know. I can't accept it. I can't accept it. Take a step back and you'll see the world. Take a step back and you'll see the world. Take a step back and you'll see the world. Take a step back and you'll see the world. Miao Xian's last strand of consciousness was on the verge of collapsing. She fell into endless torment as if she had gone crazy. Losing her primordial body was the most precious thing to a woman, something more important than her life. Moreover, it was a person without any emotions. No matter what, she couldn't accept it, at least for now. Just as this strand of consciousness was about to escape into her heart's illusion, a voice suddenly appeared in her mind. Take a step back and you'll see the world. Master? But do you want me to retreat? But Miao Xian didn't know if it was an illusion or if it was her master's divine sense, but that vast voice suddenly appeared in the deepest part of her soul and resounded throughout the world. In a trance, she seemed to see her master's figure and her master's kind and comforting eyes. I understand, Master. The strand of consciousness that was on the verge of going crazy finally regained its tranquility. In peace, it actually fell asleep like a baby. Without consciousness, it merged into the subconscious and became wholehearted. Chapter 1339. Boom. Chi. As Miao Xian's consciousness merged with her body, her soul and body became complete. It was also at this moment that her soul shadow suddenly appeared above the two bodies. Chen Hao's remnant consciousness was slightly shocked when he felt the boundless and mysterious attractive force. Out of body? Chen Hao couldn't believe it. The integration of soul out of body could only be done with one's whole heart. Even if there was a trace of consciousness remaining, it couldn't be done. In the case where the subconscious mind was dominant, it was necessary to lose all consciousness. But now, Miao Xian had actually gone out of body. That's not right. She must have a trace of consciousness like me. She didn't disappear before. Now that her injuries are recovering, she should be able to relax. How could she integrate into the subconscious mind now? Master, don't waste the opportunity. The Sword Emperor's primordial body can only be used once. She is already your woman, although it was an accident. Suddenly, Old God's voice appeared out of nowhere in Chen Hao's remaining consciousness. The words he spoke were simple words, yet they were vast like the tune of the Tao, and they suffused the depths of this strand of Chen Hao's mind and resounded through the heavens and the earth. Chen Hao wanted to say something, yet he suddenly became dazed. Fuck your mother, Old God. I don't have a mother, Master. Chen Hao's last consciousness was to fuck Old God. And Old God, who was immersed in the deepest part of Chen Hao's mind, crossed his legs and revealed a proud smile. Behind him, clouds curled up, like a fairyland. An ancient door engraved with complicated runes was faintly discernible, releasing an ancient, solemn, and sacred aura. Even Chen Hao had never found such an existence in his mind. Boom. Chi. Chen Hao's remaining consciousness was like Miao Xian, integrated into the subconscious mind. Coupled with Miao Xian's soul out of body, there was no suspense at all. Chen Hao's soul also rose and intertwined with Miao Xian's soul. At this time, Wan Yishui, who was in the midst of enlightenment, clearly felt that the aura around him had become more comfortable and intoxicating. Immersed in enlightenment, he felt that he was about to make a breakthrough, but there was always a thin layer separating him, as if something was missing. Finally, at this moment, there was a qualitative change that occurred. Boom. The profound meaning of the green silk blue wave technique finally took a step forward. In an instant, her aura merged with Chen Hao and Miao Xian, complementing and influencing each other. Boom. It was also at this time that Wan Yishui, who had entered the highest realm with Chen Hao countless times, showed an inconceivable scene. His soul left his body. Voila! What was even more shocking was that it directly merged into Chen Hao and Miao Xian's souls, and the three souls merged. It was like a dragon toying with two phoenixes, circling around the bodies of the three in a profound trajectory. Three cultivators. If Chen Hao was still conscious at this moment, he would definitely be extremely excited. Hiss. No one knew that at this time, between Chen Hao's eyebrows, mysterious runes were constantly flowing out, quickly drifting between heaven and earth, forming a mysterious protection around the three of them. It blocked off any aura of the three of them, and even isolated the space. If other cultivators were to pass by, they would definitely not discover this dilapidated but charming palace. Wholeheartedly and subconsciously dual cultivation, and it was with a sword emperor's body. More importantly, there was also one Ishue who used the absolute dual cultivation technique, Azure Silk Blue Ripple technique. How much could he comprehend in such a heaven-defying great cycle? How much could she learn? How much could she improve? The old god could not be sure, but he knew that it must be very strong. Moreover, there were no side effects to the body, because they were the subconscious. Master, I have created an absolutely quiet and reliable environment for you. I hope you can improve to the greatest extent. Otherwise, when you wake up, you may become the target of this female sword emperor, or even be killed. The old god muttered to himself. After that, his figure flashed and disappeared into the indistinct immortal gate. Even the old god himself did not expect that things would develop to this step. But after entering the fusion of yin and yang, when the two of them only had a wisp of divine consciousness left, he had a chance to perform. How could the old god waste this opportunity? He decisively acted for his master. Although he was fucked, the old god did not care. Sometimes he could not completely follow his master's wishes. In the depths of the immortal emperor tomb, a figure flying rapidly in the void suddenly stopped. He thoughtfully turned back to look at the path he came from. I'm restless. Did something really happen to Junior Sister? It shouldn't be. Although brotherly Yuan is the reincarnation of an immortal emperor, his strength is not even comparable to mine, and the gap between him and Junior Sister is even greater. No matter what the situation is, Junior Sister should have the absolute advantage. Well, it should be the danger intuition brought about by my gradually approaching the coffin of the immortal emperor. Qin Yang stood upright in the void like a sword. His whole aura was filled with an awe-inspiring righteousness, grand and sacred, as if he was the ruler of the world. As the sword emperor, he would only restrain his aura in front of Junior Sister. Firstly, it was the suppression of his innate constitution. Secondly, she was his most beloved, doted on, and spoiled Junior Sister. He would not compete with Junior Sister. Nor would he really compete with Junior Sister. Since childhood, giving in to her had already become a character in his bones. Miao Xian had never believed her master's words that she was not as strong as senior brother. She also did not think that senior brother was someone who had truly comprehended the supreme mysteries of the sword Tao. Because she had the constitution of a sword emperor, and because senior brother was inferior to her every time they fought. Her master had also once told her that whether it was the constitution of a sword emperor or the constitution of a sword emperor, it was just a kind of innate advantage. Postnatal effort was the most important. Just like her master, he had the most ordinary constitution, but now he was known as the new Sword King. Miao Xian had always thought that her master's words were just to advise her not to be arrogant. She thought that she understood everything. But, if at this moment she quietly appeared and secretly saw senior brother Qin Yang's aura, she would understand what a real swordsman was like. Qin Yang smiled casually and cut off the inexplicably beating, uneasy feeling with a sword. A swordsman was courageous and fearless. A swordsman was upright and plain-spoken, straightforward and decisive. However, what Qin Yang did not know was that this time, his judgment was wrong. Because the moment when he was feeling uneasy was the moment when Miao Xian and Chen Hao were about to perish together. And the reason why he made such a judgment was that the life and death crisis lasted for too short a time, and then it turned into the fusion of yin and yang. Chapter 1340. Otherwise, with Qin Yang's heart as clear as a mirror and his spirit as untainted as a speck of dust, his intuition would be very accurate. The immortal emperor's coffin, it's about time. I'll wait for Junior Sister to reach the front before I advance. Qi. The endless and terrifying pressure had almost no effect on Qin Yang. His state of mind had long reached the pinnacle of the way of the sword, and it was the great Tao. His state of mind was as clear as a mirror, untainted by dust and impervious to all techniques. Under the powerful space-time laws of the Emperor's Star's secret realm, 1,000 years was but a blink of an eye. Qin Yang, who was sitting cross-legged, seemed to have merged with all things in the world, becoming a part of the mountain. He did not use any boundary to protect himself, nor did he send out any energy to circulate around his body. He just quietly comprehended the world, and 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. His body was already covered with a thick layer of dust, and grass had grown out. It's been 1,000 years. With junior sister's character, why hasn't she advanced for so long? Even if she had a conflict with brotherly Yuan, it should have ended long ago, and she should have appeared long ago. Qin Yang, who knew Miao Xian very well, was puzzled. Even if junior sister cultivated in seclusion, it would at most be 1,000 years. Since she was young, this was the limit of her seclusion. With her astonishing talent and comprehension, there were not many things that required her to cultivate in seclusion for a long time. I'll wait for another 100 years. If she still doesn't appear, I'll go back and take a look, Qin Yang thought. He did not think that junior sister would return to the world now. If something happened, it should be in the core of the immortal emperor's coffin, or on the azure cloud stairs mentioned in the news. Just as Qin Yang was preparing to immerse himself in the world again, to feel the pulse of the world and comprehend the pinnacle of the way of the sword, an aura suddenly appeared in his perception. She's here. I've already said that junior sister's patience is only 1,000 years. Ha! Qin Yang smiled. However, he who had clearly sensed junior sister's aura did not reveal his own aura at this time. Instead, he completely concealed it. He could not let junior sister know that he was deliberately waiting for her. The familiar aura was approaching from afar. The speed was extremely shocking. In a short 1,000 years, junior sister's speed has increased so much? Her aura seems to be a lot stronger. Qin Yang was slightly surprised. But as Miao Xian got closer and closer, Qin Yang suddenly let out a boom sound. His aura violently soared, igniting the entire world. At that moment, it was like a sword that had been slumbering for billions of years had suddenly revealed its strongest sword light, causing the entire world to tremble in fear. Rumble. In an instant, just the aura that Qin Yang suddenly released actually caused the surroundings to surge with thousands of sword lights, causing the mountains to collapse and the earth to split. How is that possible? How could this be? Junior sister. Like a sword, he directly cut through the void and flew towards Miao Xian. Primordial Yin body. His junior sister had actually lost her primordial Yin body. She had only gone into seclusion for a short period of time. Furthermore, he was right in front of his junior sister's path of advancement. But unexpectedly, if his junior martial sister had lost her primordial Yin body, he could understand if she had someone following her. After all, his master had said that his junior martial sister would meet the man of her destiny here. But now, his junior martial sister, who was flying at high speed, was all alone. When he saw his junior sister's appearance, it made Qin Yang's heart ache even more. Endless pity and anger surged in his heart. How was this still his beautiful and proud junior sister? Her thin face, her lonely expression, her sorrowful and empty eyes, her messy hair. Every single one of them deeply pierced Qin Yang's heart. In Qin Yang's life, he only had two family members, his master and his junior sister. They were also his only concern. His greatest happiness was that his master and junior sister were both happy. His greatest wish was to step onto the peak of the sword Dao and become his master's pride and his junior sister's guardian. But now, junior sister. In just an instant, Qin Yang had arrived beside Miao Xian. His eyes were filled with pity and endless anger as he shouted. However, Miao Xian was not even surprised by his sudden appearance. It was not that Miao Xian had sensed Qin Yang from the beginning, but that she was numb, yes, numb. Junior sister, tell senior brother what happened. Senior brother is here for everything. Qin Yang grabbed Miao Xian's shoulders and looked straight into her empty eyes as he said. Unfortunately, Miao Xian only looked at him quietly and emptily. The more it was like this, the more Qin Yang's heart hurt. Tell senior brother, who bullied you? No matter who it is, senior brother can make the decision for you. Tell me. Qin Yang shook Miao Xian's shoulders and asked loudly. Senior brother, don't disturb me, don't disturb you? Senior brother will not allow anyone to bully you. Even if it's your destined man, he shouldn't at this time. I left him. Senior brother, I know you care about me, but now, I really don't need you to care about me. I'm in the middle of comprehending. I just want to leave him, far away. I don't believe in fate, and I don't believe in fate. So what if he got me? I just lost my primordial Een body. I'm still me. I'm still me. How can he be worthy of me? He's so much worse than senior brother. It's impossible between us, impossible. Senior brother. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about me. I'm cultivating, I'm comprehending, really. Miao Xian's empty eyes seemed to have regained consciousness, but the words she said made Qin Yang's heart bleed. That expression, that tone, those words. How much stimulation did junior sister have to endure to become like this? Junior sister? Qin Yang took her into his arms tenderly. Junior sister? If you want to cry, just cry. Will senior brothers still laugh at you? Don't worry, no matter who it is, as long as they make you unhappy, senior brother will avenge you. If you want him to die, he can't live. Senior brother, what I can do, you can't do. What I can't do, you naturally can't do. I'm stronger than you, stronger than you. If I want to kill him, it's very simple, but although I hate it, although I can't do it. Senior brother, you know that I always keep my words. I said 3 moves and an accident happened in 3 moves. It's not his fault, nor my fault. This is all fate. No, I won't be with him, I'm still me. Senior brother, can I be considered to have succeeded in defying the heavens? Junior sister, sleep for a while. Qin Yang suddenly pointed his finger and directly imprinted it between Miao Xian's eyebrows. Miao Xian's already chaotic thoughts, which seemed to have a heart demon, were finally annihilated by Qin Yang's sword of wisdom. Her eyes were wide open, and at this time, sparkling and translucent tears finally overflowed from her eyes. At this time, Qin Yang's eyes, which had always been calm, flashed with an incomparably fierce fighting spirit. Chapter 1341. After binding Miao Xian, who was in a deep coma, on his back, Qin Yang dashed towards the direction where Miao Xian had come from like a sword. Although Miao Xian did not say who it was, Qin Yang could roughly guess. Who else could it be other than Fatty Li Yuan? Although Qin Yang had completely denied it was Fatty in the beginning, based on the information he knew, only Fatty and Li Yuan, as well as himself and junior sister, were able to reach this level. He regretted that he had chosen to move forward instead of hiding near junior sister, Qi. Qin Yang, who was furious, increased his speed to the extreme, like a sword piercing through the sky. At another place. Fatty, are you really not going to chase after her? I can feel that her mood is very unstable. So what? What does it have to do with me? Didn't you hear what she said? I'm nothing in her eyes. I'm not worthy of her. Why would I chase after her? You don't understand women. Why wouldn't I understand? I don't believe that she would fall in love with me because of the accidental fusion of yin and yang. Cough cough. All right, let's not talk about this anymore. With her abnormal strength, we don't need to worry about her. Besides, if she goes crazy, you and I will be the ones to die. Why would I chase after her? If you want to chase after her, you should wait until I have the ability to subdue her with one punch. Chen Hao still wanted to say something, but when he thought of his great luck with women, he did not insist. However, Chen Hao's self-esteem was indeed severely damaged by Miao Xian. Damn it, after waking up from the fusion of yin and yang, she beat him up. Not only did he not fight back, she even scolded him. If it was just scolding him, he could understand. After all, who the hell would lose their precious primordial yin body for no reason? Anyone would be sad and angry. However, she actually scolded the handsome, elegant, intelligent, and courageous brother into a pile of shit. Not worthy of you? No matter how unworthy you are, you have to submit to Lord Fatty's crotch. She told you that she's Miao Xian, the disciple of the new generation Sword King, Chen Taishu. This proves that she doesn't really look down on you. At most, she looks down on you now. After all, every woman wants their man to be stronger than them. Only then will they be able to rely on him, just like me. In my eyes, Tao companions have nothing to do with cultivation. In front of true feelings, strength and weakness are not important. You're right now. I really don't care if you're strong or weak. No matter what you become in the future, you will like you. But the premise is that you already have feelings for each other. But you don't have feelings for each other, do you? That's true. All right, let's not talk about her anymore. My head hurts. Motherfucker, this is the first time I've been forced to this extent by a woman. We'll go deeper, but let's change directions. I'd rather take a detour. I don't want to see this woman again. Fatty, you don't want to get beaten up, right? Fuck, what nonsense are you talking about? Why would I be afraid of her? Chen Hao directly grabbed Wan Yishui, his figure flickering and disappearing on the spot. Fuck, my improvement is so fast. Just a simple activation of the great teleportation technique shocked Chen Hao and Wan Yishui at the same time. Although they felt that they had improved a lot after 1,000 years of fusion, when they really flew and operated the divine ability law, they truly felt how terrifying their improvement was. Even Wan Yishui's improvement could be described as terrifying. 10 billion miles in an instant. Whether it was the space-time law or the heavenly Tao law, Chen Hao and Wan Yishui had a comprehension that surpassed their realms in terms of compatibility. Subconsciously, they didn't know that they had comprehended it, but when they operated it, it was actually manifested. What a perverted woman! Before, I could at most surpass 2 realms to comprehend the heavenly Tao law. It was very difficult to go any higher, but she surpassed me by several realms. Chen Hao thought, the Sword Tao law and heavenly Tao law contained in her vital yin are also very strong. It's impossible for ordinary people to comprehend it. Fortunately, it was given to me. Although it will take some time, comprehending it is not a problem, as long as I do it step by step. Fatty, let me test my limits. Wan Yishui said excitedly. But Fatty directly separated from Wan Yishui. Immediately, Wan Yishui relied entirely on himself to activate the great teleportation art, and his figure flashed away. The fatty smiled and followed closely. Although Wan Yishui's speed was nothing in front of him, there were only a few people in the Emperor's Star's secret realm who could beat her. The two of them were immersed in the excitement of increasing their strength, and moved to the side at an astonishing speed. Little did they know that it was this decision that allowed them to avoid the furious Qin Yang. Otherwise, even if Chen Hao didn't die, he would have to endure Miao Xian's ravaging. Qin Yang's true strength was even stronger than Miao Xian's. It wasn't something that could be measured by pure physique. In the case of perfection paragons of the same realm, the strength of one's mental state was the true strength. If it wasn't for Miao Xian, who was Qin Yang's reverse scale, Qin Yang's mental state would have reached the realm of being impervious to all techniques. Of course, this referred to techniques of the same realm. After waking up from a deep sleep, Miao Xian had finally returned to normal. She had never cried before, but this was the first time she cried in front of her senior brother, who was like family to her. She cried to her heart's content, venting the grievances, unwillingness and anger in her heart. She also told Qin Yang the whole story. However, after knowing the truth, Qin Yang wasn't as angry as before. However, although he didn't want to admit it, he had to admit that the man destined for his junior sister was indeed not worthy of her, even if the other party had exceeded his expectations. However, in Qin Yang's eyes, who in the world was worthy of his junior sister? Probably no one. Miao Xian was the most precious treasure in his and his master's hearts. In his heart, she was his closest junior sister, his youngest sister. She was a flawless existence, and Qin Yang would feel that no man was worthy of her. This kind of feeling was indescribable. Perhaps only those who had daughters, sisters, and brothers would be able to understand it. This is what happened. Senior brother, do you think should I kill him? Chen Hao's appearance appeared in Miao Xian's mind. She had already seen the two appearances, the disguised fatty and the original, and the scene of thousands of years of fusion, which made her feel conflicted again. To kill or not to kill, She couldn't be sure of her own heart. Junior sister, a swordsman can't be sloppy. Your current tone has already betrayed your heart. If you wanted to kill him, you should have killed him before. Naturally, you wouldn't have waited until the future. In fact, I can feel that the biggest resistance in your heart may not be him, but the so-called fate, the so-called destiny. Qin Yang said softly, gazing into the endless void. His gaze was distant, but it had to be said that he had hit the nail on the head. Chapter 1342. In this world, the person who understood Miao Xian the most was Qin Yang. Even her master, Chen Tai Su, couldn't compare to her in this regard. Fate. Miao Xian muttered to herself. You just want to defy the heavens and succeed. You don't want to be defeated by fate. But what is fate? It's like an invisible hand that controls everything about us. Let alone us. Even a powerhouse like Master or the legendary celestial emperors can't escape from the river of fate. Many times, the more we understand the truth, the farther we are from it, and the more confused we feel. Only when we truly see through it will we be enlightened. Your current situation is fate. You killed him, but can you be sure that it's not fate? I can't be sure. In fact, it's because Master spoiled you too much. He was afraid that something would happen to you, so he told you the heavenly secrets he deduced time and time again in advance so that you could seek fortune and avoid calamity. After so many years, if you didn't have the body of a sword emperor and the bloodline inheritance, your realm and combat strength wouldn't have reached such a level. It's also because Master told you that you feel like you're fighting fate. What if Master didn't tell you? Perhaps the situation would be better. But since Master said it, perhaps it's also a part of fate. It's too profound, junior sister. For now, this is an unsolvable problem for us. Let's leave everything to fate and let nature take its course. Qin Yang was confused by her own words. In the depths of the boundless Milky Way, Chen Shui, Chen Nan, Pan Long, and Du Jing formed a team in the Milky Way tunnel and quickly advanced through the tunnel's automatic teleportation function. They had been in here for a while, but under the ever-changing laws of space and time, they didn't know how long they had been in here. At this moment, the Milky Way tunnel suddenly began to widen. The great world of Xiandi, we're almost there. We're almost there. Brother, I'm coming. Boss, we're coming. Ha. Pan Long and the others stood up from their cross-legged positions one after another in excitement. They were about to arrive at the legendary The Great World of Xiandi. The girls also stood up excitedly. They had already received news of Qin Hao from Xi. Although they were a little worried, they believed that Qin Hao's original body would return in one piece. As for the clones of the 9 Lives Profound technique, the girls had never thought too much about them. In their opinion, they were just the products of Qin Hao's cultivation process. The original body was irreplaceable. If Qin Hao's original body perished, the avatar would be meaningless to them. De Hua Star, De Hua Academy. I hope we won't appear too far away from there. Of course, it would be best if he could appear on planet Gargantuan. However, the chances of that happening are very small. Don't think too much about it. Even if Hao comes out of the Emperor Star's secret realm, it will be many years later. At that time, he will have reached the great circle of the Daluo Golden Wonderland and will definitely go to the Hongmeng domain. At that time, we will be almost there. That's true. Naturally, he'll have to meet teacher Xi Xian when he returns, and will receive the news as well, yes. The girls discussed excitedly. Although not many years had passed since they reincarnated, it was still a reincarnation. They felt that it had been a long time since they last saw Qin Hao. Now that they were on the path to Qin Hao's side, how could they not be excited? Sisters, I won't be going with you. Lu Hui, who was still in the Sky River Star region's attire, was now wearing jeans and a white t-shirt. Her long hair was draped over her shoulders, and she was full of youthful beauty. However, the jeans and t-shirt were not ordinary clothes. They were clothes that Lu Hui had specially refined. What are you going to do? The girls asked. I have to hide myself. Senior Yilan said so. Don't worry, I'll be fine. I'll go around by myself. I'll keep in touch with the celestial realm. As Lu Hui spoke, she tore through the barrier of the Milky Way tunnel and disappeared in a flash. Everyone looked at each other, but there was nothing they could do. Lu Hui, who was the reincarnation of the soul of all creation, was strong. Other than her aura, they did not know anything else about her. In short, she was very strong. After tearing through the barrier of space, everyone stepped out of the Milky Way tunnel. However, even though it had only been a moment, they had completely lost track of Lu Hui. So close, yet so far. This was the strength of the Milky Way tunnel. After flying continuously for several months in the chaotic space, everyone finally stepped into the legendary great world of Xiandi. They followed in Chen Hao's footsteps and started a new life. Less than half a month before them, the seventh anima, who had completely inherited Chen Hao's talent and was regarded as the most abnormal by Yi Lan and the others, had stepped into the great world of Xiandi. Since then, except for Buttface and other brothers and sisters who were much weaker and did not have much ambition, Chen Hao had all stepped into the great world of Xiandi. They represented the most talented and powerful young generation in the ancient chaos universe. They had experienced the era when the 10 galaxies were divided and divided. They had grown up in poverty and experienced countless trials of life and death. Even the unification of the 10 galaxies and the reappearance of the ancient chaos heavenly Tao could be attributed to their contributions. Now, with the glory and hope of the ancient chaos universe, they had followed in the footsteps of the god of slaughter Chen Hao. They had come in the name of proud heaven as a whole. Could they be famous enough to shake the celestial emperor? The wheel of fate was rolling forward, like an invisible hand that covered the sky, controlling and pushing everything forward. Opportunities and luck that could not be seen or touched were always playing their role in the unseen world. Along the way, Chen Hao had always been in the midst of surpassing others. Suddenly, because of coincidences, he slowed down. Sometimes he exchanged time for space, sometimes he exchanged time for time. When the women and brothers and sisters felt that they could not keep up with him at all, waiting appeared. Waiting for them to catch up, waiting for their arrival, giving them new hope, new passion, and new enthusiasm. Now, stepping into the great world of Xiandi was a new beginning for them, a new round of catching up. After experiencing the precipitation of reincarnation and time, the women had been able to face their own feelings. They could bear the heartache and longing for Chen Hao when they had let go of him. Now, what they had to do was to catch up with him crazily during the period of time Chen Hao gave them. Chen Nan, Pan Long, Du Jing, and the others who had not been reincarnated had surpassed Chen Hao's current stage and stepped into the Hongmeng Supreme stage. However, they did not have the slightest sense of superiority. Itoda, who had stepped into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm a long time ago, did not dare to relax at all. In their minds, in front of their abnormal boss, the stage was nothing but a floating cloud. Chapter 1343. After Chen Hao and Wan Yishui took a long detour, they began to move towards the core of the fluctuations. The Emperor's Star Secret Realm, the Immortal Emperor Tomb, and the Immortal Emperor's Coffin were all extremely attractive to cultivators, especially the Immortal Emperor's Coffin. The disappearance of history, the extinction of immortal emperors, everything was just a legend. In the billions of years of new epics and new historical records, not a single immortal emperor had appeared. The Emperor's Star Secret Realm could be said to be the place closest to the immortal emperor's aura, and the immortal emperor's coffin might allow cultivators to see the legendary remains of the immortal emperor. What did the remains of the immortal emperor mean? Not to mention the cultivators of the Daluo Golden Wonderland, even true immortal king experts would be excited to see it, because the remains of the immortal emperor must have reached the realm of immortality. It was refined to the peak by an immortal emperor expert, and definitely contained supreme laws and Tao marks. And this was only in the sense of inheritance. On the other hand, the remains of the immortal emperor were definitely one of the best materials to refine powerful magic treasures. This was undeniable. Unfortunately, even though all the cultivators knew this, not many of them had the guts and ability to come over. Moreover, because of the appearance of the Azure Cloud Stairs, Those who had the ability to come chose to give up. For example, the young noble of saber and sword Ding Hao, Xiao Mantian and his wife, and the young noble of Godspeed Feng Wuxing. Now, only Chen Hao, Wan Yishui, Qin Yang, and Miao Xian were still approaching the core of the immortal emperor tomb. As they went deeper and deeper, the pressure grew stronger and stronger. Chen Hao and Wan Yishui would have to stop every few days to cultivate and comprehend for at least 100 years. On the other side, Miao Xian's situation was not better than Chen Hao and Wan Yishui. This was an invisible contest. Both sides knew that since the other side had gone so deep, they had no reason to give up on the immortal emperor tomb. Whether they could open it or not, they had to at least try, even if it was just a glance. However, Qin Yang, who could be faster, chose to follow in his junior sister's footsteps. He did not want anything to happen to her. Compared to his junior sister, the immortal emperor's coffin was nothing. Moreover, he didn't think that Chen Hao and Wan Yishui could be faster than them. Previously, Chen Hao and Wan Yishui were able to get ahead of them. In his opinion, the biggest reason was that Chen Hao and Wan Yishui had the great teleportation technique. But now, as they went deeper and deeper, the immortal emperor's pressure became more and more powerful. Speed was not the only factor. More importantly, it depended on the ability to withstand the immortal emperor's pressure, the speed of adaptation, the speed of comprehension, and other conditions. Flying speed was basically negligible in the end. Senior brother? What's wrong, junior sister? You can be faster than me, right? Miao Xian looked at Qin Yang with a strange expression and asked. She had always believed that she was stronger than Qin Yang. But under the terrifying pressure, after 1,000 years, she discovered that Qin Yang was able to keep up with her. If she stopped, he would stop as well. When she left, he left as well. Moreover, when she thought of the scene when she and Qin Yang met when she was on the verge of collapse, Miao Xian finally realized that something was wrong. Senior brother can barely keep up with junior sister. If you were a little faster, senior brother wouldn't be able to keep up. You're lying. Miao Xian was a little angry. She had been angry and reprimanded her senior brother too many times, so she was already used to it. But this time, after she finished speaking, her expression became slightly gloomy. She immediately said, "Senior brother, thank you for always giving in to me. But now, please don't do that to me again. Don't let me live in a self-righteous illusion. I want to be the real me, and you also want to be the real you." I've been with him for 1,000 years. Even in the perfection realm, my battle strength has increased by nearly 20%. But you still? Senior brother, I've already grown up, okay? Junior sister, don't be agitated. Actually, senior brother is only strong in the state of mind. You're the sword emperor, senior brother is the sword emperor, and will always, don't say any more. You can be fast. I hope you can be fast, the faster the better. We can't let that damn fatty get there first. Can they be faster than us? Junior sister? You don't understand. Can you go quickly? All right, but senior brother must bring you with him. Boom. A dazzling sword ray suddenly bloomed from between Qin Yang's brows, condensing into numerous energy swords that protected Miao Xian. What shocked Miao Xian was that in just an instant, the extremely powerful Celestial Emperor's aura had weakened a lot. Although it could not completely block it, it was enough for her to move unhindered. Virtuous like water, invulnerable. Senior brother, your state of mind has actually reached such a level? No desires, no thoughts, no self, no heart. I'm the sword is me, and the body and mind are only the sword. Senior brother still can't achieve invulnerability because I still have worries in my heart. Qin Yang brought Miao Xian with him as he charged through the layers of pressure like a sword piercing through the wind and waves. Only when the heart is free of worries can there be no fear. Without fear, one can stay away from the inverted dream and achieve nirvana. At that time, one can achieve true invulnerability. Only when the heart is free of worries can there be no fear. Without fear, one can stay away from the inverted dream and achieve nirvana. Miao Xian seemed to have comprehended something as she muttered and repeated Qin Yang's words. She actually slowly closed her eyes. Her entire body bloomed with crystal-clear sword rays as the sword shadow condensed between her brows. Epiphany, Qin Yang was surprised. Then, a knowing smile appeared on the corners of his mouth as he muttered, "Junior sister's innate talent is stronger than mine after all. It's just temporarily inferior to me." No. Qin Yang carefully sensed the aura on Miao Xian's body. Suddenly, he was surprised again. Junior sister's experience of dual cultivation after losing her primordial yin body seems to have brought her a lot of improvement. I should have thought of this earlier. Junior martial sister is already at the full circle realm. Apart from raising her realm, it is extremely difficult for her to raise her strength by even a little bit. However, she and Li Yuan, after returning, it has only been 1,000 years, but her strength has increased by a large margin. Even if it is dual cultivation, it should not have such a strong effect. After all, junior martial sister is already at the full circle realm. 1. Right at this moment, Miao Xian, who seemed to have entered a state of epiphany, suddenly emitted a sacred golden light. She sat down with her legs crossed. Her body was like a sword, and her sword was like a person. Her shadows overlapped, and she looked extremely sacred. But what shocked Qin Yang even more was Miao Xian's red lips parted slightly, and a lotus bloomed. Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, when he was deep in meditation, he saw that the 5 skandhas were all empty. According to the meditation, there was no worry in the heart, no worry, no fear, away from the inverted dream, in the end nirvana. Reveal the truth, 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 reveal the truth of as the sound of Tao spread out, a profound and complete scripture that Qin Yang had never heard before drifted out from Miao Xian's mouth. Chapter 1344. This made Qin Yang extremely excited. The reason why his state of mind was so strong was that during his training, he had coincidentally obtained a few lines of the heart cultivation inheritance that he had just told Si Xian. It was an incomplete heart cultivation sutra, and he had been enlightened by it at that time. And now, Miao Xian had actually chanted the complete and profound heart sutra. There was no need to distinguish it at all. Just from the profound meaning contained in Miao Xian's Tao voice, Qin Yang could be sure that this was definitely the complete version of the incomplete Heart Sutra that he had obtained, and Si Xian had inherited its essence. If Chen Hao was here, he would definitely be shocked with his eyes and mouth wide open because Miao Xian had chanted one of the most powerful Heart Sutra of Prajna Pramitha. In the subconscious fusion of Yin and Yang, Miao Xian had actually obtained its profound meaning from Chen Hao. Moreover, this might only be one of the benefits that Miao Xian had obtained. The others were still hidden in her subconscious, waiting for the right opportunity to awaken. Just like Qin Yang's casual words had caused Miao Xian to have an epiphany at this moment. Even Chen Hao would never have thought of this, let alone the power of the Heart Sutra. Chen Hao had chanted the Heart Sutra countless times when his nirvana true self was undergoing nirvana. However, limited by his own realm and experience, the limit of his comprehension was his own limit. There were many things that he thought he had truly comprehended, but with the increase of experience and the improvement of his vision, when he looked back, he would find that the same words had a new meaning. This was the power of the Heart Sutra. No one could say that they had truly comprehended it. No one could say that they had truly mastered it. Miao Xian had entered an epiphany. The Tao voice appeared, and the lotus bloomed. Qin Yang was shocked and surprised. He was also immersed in the profound meaning of Miao Xian's Tao voice and entered a state of cultivation. The coercion of the tomb of the immortal emperor, under the increasingly clear and distant Tao voice, quietly retreated. Endless rays of light surged in a radius of millions of miles, and a vast and sacred aura spread out. Time passed quietly in this oblivious state. After an unknown period of time, a faint sword was quietly born in the Tao voice. At this moment, Miao Xian's whole body bloomed with a sword-shaped light shadow. Her beautiful and otherworldly face bloomed with endless majesty, as if an empress had descended. In the depths of the tomb of the immortal emperor, two figures stood hand in hand. Their Taoist robes and long hair fluttered in the wind. The terrifying pressure that was coming towards them made them squint their eyes. It was as if a sword was coming towards them. Both their bodies and souls were enduring the pain of being cut into pieces. Fatty, it hurts. Facing pain head-on is the cruelest way, but it's also the fastest way. Persevere. I will persevere, but this is really so close yet worlds apart. It's been 10,000 years, and we've only advanced 100 kilometers. 10,000 years here is only a little more than 3 years. To have such an improvement in 3 years, what more do you want, Sister Shui? Chen Hao said. After parting ways with Miao Xian, 20,000 years had passed in the immortal emperor tomb. 10,000 years ago, Chen Hao and Wan Yishui had reached the true core, outside the immortal emperor's coffin. However, they were blocked by its terrifying pressure and Tao marks. After 10,000 years, they had only advanced about 100 miles. To them, who could travel tens of billions of miles in an instant, this was absolutely unbearable. However, Chen Hao felt that these 10,000 years were worth it. In the first 3,000 years, Chen Hao's mind was connected with Wan Yishui's, and they both endured the pressure of the Tao marks. Although it did slow him down, he was able to integrate his state of mind into Wan Yishui's state of mind and endure Wan Yishui's pain. This feeling made him, who had an extremely strong ability to endure pain, become thousands of times more sensitive. It was equivalent to a brand new tempering. His temperament, patience, and willpower were all improved in all aspects. In the middle 3,000 years, Chen Hao's mind was still connected with Wan Yishui's, but he no longer endured Wan Yishui's pain. Instead, he sought to transcend his own pain. Allowing his state of mind to transcend the pain and immerse himself in comprehending Tao marks and laws. This was a kind of transcendence of the state of mind. But Chen Hao had used an entire 3,000 years of time and had really done it. As he went deeper, even if he had to endure the pain of being sliced into pieces, Chen Hao was still able to immerse himself completely in comprehension and wasn't affected by the pain in the slightest. Determination. This was one of the strongest types of determination. In the remaining 4,000 years, Chen Hao once again integrated into Wan Yishui's state of mind. While enduring Wan Yishui's pain, he sought to transcend. Until now, he finally did it again. He had almost reached the state of being invulnerable. Furthermore, he did not achieve it through the method of cultivating his state of mind. Instead, he faced the cruel pain head-on, and sought to transcend the pain step by step. Right now, if it wasn't for Wan Yishui, Chen Hao could have sped up by several times. This was because the terrifying pressure of the Tao marks had already turned into an insignificant breeze when his mental state had transcended to the point where he was almost invulnerable to all techniques. It blew over slowly, but it didn't cause any pain in the slightest, only a cool and refreshing feeling. You seem to be very relaxed, as if it's easy to talk while standing, cough cough. That's true, but Big Brother also walked step by step. What you are experiencing now is just the process that Big Brother went through. To you, it is indeed a little cruel. How about Big Brother say that you have an absolute art that cultivates the mind? Absolute art that cultivates the mind. Actually, its profound meaning when our spirit and body fused, you should have felt it. It's just that whether you can comprehend it or not depends on yourself. Now that Big Brother is imparting it to you, you might not be able to comprehend it in a short period of time. But as long as you concentrate on reciting it, you will definitely comprehend it and gain something. Oh, good. Wan Yishui said excitedly. After becoming the Fatty's Tao companion and truly beginning the fusion of yin and yang, Wan Yishui truly understood how abnormal the Fatty was. At least to Wan Yishui, he was definitely an unfathomable existence. And now, since the Fatty said that it was an absolute art that cultivated the mind, how could it be bad? Chen Hao smiled and began to chant. In an instant, the sound of the great path bloomed from the tip of Chen Hao's tongue. Golden lotuses floated out and danced around Wan Yishui. Chen Hao, who was sitting cross-legged, became solemn and dignified, as if Buddha or Bodhisattva had descended. He was extremely divine. Chen Hao was reciting the Heart Sutra of Prajna pineapple honey. It was definitely a coincidence. Even if Chen Hao broke his head, he would never have thought that after 1,000 years of fusion, and under the situation where the subconscious occupied the absolute dominant position, Miao Xian would be able to obtain the profound meaning of the Heart Sutra from the fusion of yin and yang with him. Even more so, he would never have thought that they would start reciting it in the same space in different positions. Chapter 1345. The golden Buddhist light soared into the sky and spread out in all directions. It was as if it was delivering all living beings from torment, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. It spread, and spread. Chen Hao, who hadn't recited Buddhist scriptures for a long time, inadvertently recited Buddhist scriptures. Suddenly, he had a brand new understanding. In the emptiness, he saw his true self and saw the Dharma of heaven and earth. In the places where his Buddhist light spread, Chen Hao felt the pressure of the immortal emperor's coffin turn into gusts of wind. It didn't avoid him, but instead dissipated into the heavens and earth, as if it had been purified. As for his own mind, it was within the Buddhist light. Like tentacles, it could clearly feel the pulse of the heavens and earth, as if it was alive. Looking down on the world. Spread, and spread. Chen Hao was immersed in the feeling of controlling the heavens and earth and looking down on the world. He felt his primordial spirit being infinitely enlarged, as if he was stepping on the sun and moon, plucking the stars with his hands. The stars were like fireflies, dancing around him. Of course, Chen Hao was very clear that this was a feeling that transcended to another plane, and not the scene in the Emperor Star's secret realm. Of course, Chen Hao didn't think that what he was seeing was an illusion, because that was Chen Hao's primordial spirit expanding. This should be the universe before the Emperor Star's secret realm was condensed, right? Chen Hao thought to himself. At the same time, almost the same words appeared in another direction, in the heart of another illusory figure. There's someone? Almost at the same time, the two godlike figures, Chen Hao and the other figures, suddenly looked at each other. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. The heavens and earth collapsed the moment their gazes, or more accurately, the light of their primordial spirits, met. It's him. It's him. The moment their primordial spirits dissipated, they both recognized each other. However, they were both swallowed by an uncontrollable torrent of subconsciousness. Their yin spirits were like two poles of a magnet, producing an extremely strong attraction force. They suddenly broke free from the constraints of time and space of this plane and directly intertwined with each other. Under the law of time and space, 20,000 years later, Chen Hao and Miao Xian met in such a way. Once again, they were dominated by their hidden consciousness. Even though they were billions of miles apart, they merged together. The fusion of yin and yang between yin masters. Who would have thought? Emptiness is not different from color, and color is not different from emptiness. Emptiness is color, and color is emptiness. Neither birth nor destruction, neither filth nor purity, neither increase nor decrease. Therefore, the emptiness is colorless. The heart is free of worries. At the same time, each other's Taoist voices appeared in the sober yang spirits of the two at the same time. They did not allow the two of them to have any thoughts at all. They intertwined with everything on their own and connected their states of mind together. The great karmic force that existed between heaven and earth forcefully connected the two of them. The Dharma of Buddhism is boundless. An indescribable feeling spread wildly in Chen Hao and Miao Xian's hearts, stimulating their states of mind. Relatively speaking, Chen Hao was fine. After all, he was much more familiar with the fusion of yin and yang. However, Miao Xian's sober yang spirit was deeply stimulated by the feeling of her yin spirit being dominated by her subconscious mind. This feeling was much stronger than the last time when yin and yang were completely fused for 1,000 years. Because at that time, Miao Xian's yin and yang spirits were under the control of her subconscious mind. It could be said that she did not have a clear consciousness. When she was awake, it was also the time when the dual cultivation ended peacefully. But now, even though it was only the fusion of yin spirits, it made her feel ashamed to death. Is that really my yin spirit? Is it really my subconscious mind that is controlling it and not evil thoughts? Chen Hao's state of mind was filled with endless ripples. Although he was not as shocked, excited, or confused as Miao Xian, Chen Hao was also very shocked. What the hell? Is this even possible? This is a distance of billions of miles. They can actually fuse with each other through space. He had to admit that this feeling was too fucking exciting, but just when Chen Hao and Miao Xian were still immersed in shock, the two suddenly had a clear feeling. The entanglement of the yin spirit seemed to have opened a connection between the yang spirits. Chen Hao and Miao Xian simultaneously felt a violent tremor in their bodies. A magical force that broke through the air enveloped the two of them. Not good. Chen Hao's conscious yang spirit suddenly urged his divine sense. A bright light bloomed between his eyebrows and took Wan Yishui, who was immersed in his Tao sound, into his mind space. Wan Yishui, who was not mentally prepared and did not know what was going on, seemed to have a clear feeling after entering Chen Hao's mind space. It was as if it was based on some kind of resonance. Or it could be said that under the induction of the aura, Wan Yishui directly activated the mystery of the green silk blue wave technique, which bloomed in the connection with Chen Hao's mind. Senior brother, don't worry about me. At the same time, Qing Yang, who was also immersed in Miao Xian's mysterious Tao sound, was shocked and directly bounced away. At the same time, he heard Miao Xian's rather urgent voice. It was also at this time that Chen Hao and Miao Xian, under the protection of layers of Buddhist light, directly rose into the air and disappeared in a flash. It was like breaking the void. Qin Yang, who woke up from his enlightenment, did not have time to say a word to Miao Xian. He was dumbfounded. Breaking the void? Descending in broad daylight? Qin Yang could not believe what he saw. His junior sister could disappear from his powerful perception in an instant. He completely lost track of her, and did not even leave the slightest trace of her aura. The way she left, it was definitely like breaking the void. It was even stranger than stepping into the Star River Tunnel and the space-time gate. How was this possible? How did junior sister do it? Qin Yang racked his brains, but could not think of any possibility. The only thing that Qin Yang was sure of was that the reason why his junior martial sister had suddenly shattered the void and left while in the midst of her epiphany was definitely related to the complete and profound heart cultivation sutra that she had recited. That was definitely the supreme secret scripture left behind by the primordial immortal emperor. Maybe it's the inheritance left behind by the immortal emperor in this secret realm? When junior sister comprehended to an extremely high level, some kind of restriction was activated, and junior sister was directly summoned in. Yes, it must be like that. Qin Yang finally thought of the immortal emperor's inheritance in this secret realm. It's very likely to be in the immortal emperor's coffin, or it's the azure cloud staircase. Qin Yang quickly deduced these two places. The reason was very simple. Until now, in the entire Emperor Star's secret realm, only the immortal emperor's tomb and the azure cloud staircase were the most anticipated and unexplored places. It must be the place where the immortal emperor's strongest inheritance was. It was basically impossible for the other places. It's most likely to be in the immortal emperor's coffin. With such a powerful pressure here, one must have a strong state of mind to constantly approach it. This heart cultivation sutra might be the key to opening the immortal emperor's coffin, and junior sister comprehended its essence. She obtained the qualifications to enter, or perhaps the qualifications to receive the inheritance. That you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.